All right, everybody, welcome to the Whispers in the Fog podcast. This week, our returning guests, if they would like to introduce themselves.
Hello, it's me again, the thorn in Bennett's side and most of the community when I talk about perks. My name is Silence Hero. My YouTube channel focuses on talking about perk design and more so looking at why these perks tend to be a little less picked compared to everything. The main video series that I go for is why no one uses, but I have started moving more towards stuff like killer history with reworks, and I've also talked a little bit more about the legacies of chapters and how they stood out through the tests of time.
Well, yeah, because obviously all those links will be below. Again, we were just joking about this. This is the first time I think Hero's done an actual intro for this.
I think we did one, but it was at the end of a podcast, and then you had to use the power of editing
Yes,
to
yes.
somewhat make it exist.
It's very hard to splice things into a conversation with no pause.
Fair enough. I understand the pain.
Speaking of perks, today's topic is one that was asked by a few people because we did the one where we talked about the worst design perks in the game. So today we're talking about the best design perks in the game.
There are good perks in this game?
Yes, surprisingly so. There's some good perks, some really well-designed ones. They're just not common for behavior to make or for people to use because they have what I call the honest person syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a phrase in fighting games. This is a phrase in a lot of types of games, but in fighting games there's a phrase called an honest character. And what an honest character is a character who has very clear counterplay. Their tells are very, very, very obvious. They're decent to use. They're not super hard. Even if you get good with them, they're not super OP. That's an honest character. What that's short for is it's a character that's not that good.
Would we say that Garen from League would be an example of an honest character?
I would say Kassadin is an example of an honest character.
I could see it.
Kassadin's a very honest character. He has very clear tells. He has very good strengths or very clear strengths, at least nowadays. Very clear strengths and weaknesses. He's not super OP, even if you're really good with him. And there's ways to play around him. In Dead by Daylight, a killer, I said this about Chucky after his rework or after his changes recently. I think Chucky is a pretty honest character.
I think Demogorgon is another example too. I know for the longest time people said he should have been the benchmark for killer balance when he was initially coming out.
Yeah, Demogorgon, in fact, I think is another good example of an honest killer in this game. A lot of people argue he's a knowledge check, but yeah, it's pretty much what that means. If you know what you're doing, you can't do much.
I mean, he's throwing gang signs. You just need to know what kind of lingo he's speaking, and then you're Gucci.
But it's Dead by Daylight, so if you're not the top 10 killers, you're bad. So.
Oh, true. My mistake.
So we have we both chosen 3 survivor perks and 3 killer perks, and we'll kind of go down them and why we think they're bad or well designed. I almost said bad out of habit. Why they're well designed. And
you know what? It's fine. It's rare that behavior normally do actually smart things.
And the well-designedness of them kind of sparks the conversation of, especially from the two of us perspective-wise, on why we consider certain perks well-designed. One I don't have on here would be something like Rapid Brutality. I think is really well-designed.
Mm-hmm.
Because it only works on M1s. It has a downside. It has an upside. It doesn't always get used. You kind of have to, depending on the killer, you kind of have to force it. It's not always the best in every situation. Some matches you won't even see that it did anything. Yeah.
Yep.
Even as much as I complain about it, I don't have it on my list either. Something like the current Dead Hard I actually think is really well designed. As much as I hate it.
I mean, compared to before, which was just press E for distance, it's a lot more fair.
Well, I think the current Dead Hard is the best designed anti-tunnel perk in the game.
I have some arguments about that one, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
What? Hold on. What anti-tunnel perk do you think is more better designed than that?
Oh, we'll talk about it.
Oh, okay.
For now, let's talk about something a little more interesting. Let's look at the killer side and look at our magical list of perks
All
that
right.
we think are best designed in the game.
So it'll go whoever first, then them, then me, then you. But who do you want to go first?
You know what? I have no idea. Do you have a coin on you?
Uh, hang on. Let's see. Coin flipper. Okay, heads or tails.
I'll pick Tails, please. My favorite Sonic character.
It's heads.
Alright, then you go first.
Okay. All right. My first pick for a well designed killer perk, and honestly, I've said this so many times, the best designed perk in the entire game, Devour Hope.
I'm gonna level with you. For the longest time, I had that on my list as well.
I I think Devour Hope is one of the best designed perks in the entire game. It it is one, it's a hex, so it inherently has the downside of being high risk, high reward. Two, it 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 has counterplay from the other side. If they know it's happening, they can like unhook in your face to like prevent the stacks from happening. It promotes healthy gameplay because the killer can't just camp a hook, and they don't want to kill someone too fast because then that they won't get the unhook from the person they tunnel out. And it can be an absolute game changing perk if it does go off in the proper situations. A lot of the stronger killers can't use it to its fullest. Nurse can't use it at all. Like, I mean, she can probably use the Mori aspect of it, but she can't use the exposed part.
And then there's the Ghoul, but the Ghoul ignores 90% of the rules of this game.
Listen, okay, Ken has the problem I keep saying is he's blight strength as an M1. And I don't mean he's an M1 killer because that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is he benefits from everything every M1 killer does.
Yep.
So, but yeah, that's the thing with the Devour Hope though. Like I said, the biggest thing for me is that it's high risk, high reward, but in a way that both sides can play against. Because even if Devour goes off, right? It's like if the killer gets the 5 stacks of Devour, even the 3 stacks, the game like there's like a stop button on the game. Everyone stops, even in Swifts, they'll stop and like try to find the totem. Because if they let it linger for too long, then the game's basically over. And I always found that like an interesting concept because the closest thing killer has to that is like Noed, I guess. Noed is like really the only like second chance killer perk in the game. And Devour Hope is more of just a if you can get it, then it's game changing. And I really enjoy that design philosophy. And it's not something we see very often with a lot of perks.
Yeah. Like, I will say, when I was looking through my list of perks, Devour Hope was very high on that list. In fact, it was one of the very few perks I was about to place on my honorable mentions. But I have a bit of a different philosophy to you on what makes a well-designed perk. So, the last time we talked about perks, I mentioned my philosophy for making why no one uses videos.
Mm-hmm.
So, whenever I make videos on why no one uses, I ask a very simple question. Does a perk have a job, and does it do it really well? And in the case of why no one or in the case of the last video we did, when I was looking for the worst designed perks, I was looking for perks that struggle to fulfill a job, and they struggle to even find a job to fulfill. But in the case of why these three are the most best designed perks, it's a little bit more tricky. Because they can't just fulfill a job and do it well, because most of the perks in the game actually have jobs and they fulfill it well. Instead, I was looking more so, how do they find a way to keep themselves separated? And how do they make themselves avoid being malicious in gameplay style? Because, in the case of something like Off the Record has a very solid core identity. It's an anti-tunnel perk. You get unhooked, killer can't see your aura for a couple of seconds, and you have 80 seconds of endurance.
No. He can't see your aura for the whole 80 seconds.
Yeah, the whole 80 seconds, you can't see the aura, but endurance is 80 seconds as well.
Yeah.
So it's very solid on the idea of you are cutting this person off from the killer's sideline. It's pretty much the closest we'll ever get to an inability effect to turn survivors invisible.
Mm-hmm.
But the issue with Off the Record is the fact that survivors can find malicious forms to play with it. Specifically, through finding a teammate, getting healed, and then running in a swift in order to tank 2 protection hits on the other teammates.
Yeah.
And then they can combo it with other perks like Decisive Strike or Dead Hard or other stuff like that. So I was more so trying to look for perfectly designed perks that have solid ideas they are trying to do. It helps them stand apart from everything else. And more importantly, they have a healthy form of gameplay loop. Devour Hope, in my opinion, is a very strong perk that, like you said, is one of the most well-designed perks in the game. I think it follows the core philosophy of what Hex Totems are supposed to be for the game.
Mm-hmm.
They are very powerful effects that can completely flip the game on its head, but at the same time, they can pop like a balloon the moment a survivor finds it.
Well, and the other thing with Devour, like I said, is that it also has counterplay inherent to it. It's not like crowd control, the counterplay is don't vault windows, I guess.
Yeah, the counterplay of crowd control is don't vault windows, or else you're going to realize there's crowd control in the game.
Devour Hope, though, like I said, you can unhook in the killer's face so he doesn't get any stacks.
You can unhook in the killer's face, you can see the one shot and realize, okay, now I need to find the totem now.
Mm-hmm. You can just wait on hook.
Yeah, there are also new options to deal with Devour too. For example, we have a lot more new totem-based perks on the survivor side, in particular Counterforce.
I didn't even think about it. Does Shoulder the Burden activate Devour?
It does.
Okay.
No worries. In the case of my brain is turning off for a second. Hold on. Completely malfunction. But the point is, it's a very strong hex as a core solid identity of what's trying to do, but at the same time it suffers from the same issues that other hexes have, which is if a survivor spawns on top of its head, well, GG. It's gone.
Yeah. What's all right. No, enough rambling. I see you trying to draw this out. What's your first pick, Hero? I need to hear.
Oh, you got me.
What is it?
Alrighty.
What is it?
The first one is No Way Out.
No. No, I agree.
So, my logic behind No Way Out is that when it comes to new players, when the last generator pops, especially in lower MMR, and on the killer side especially, they tend to think, oh, last generator's gone? GG. The game's over. There's nothing more I can do. And there are endgame perks that exist, but they tend to be a little bit weird with their activations.
Mm-hmm.
So, in Why No One Uses, I talk about passive perks. And these are perks that have passive effects, rather than much more flashier effects. A good example would be Remember Me. You gain tokens, exit gates take longer to open. It's not as visually distinct as something like Dead Hard, where you see an animation for. So on the killer side, they see Remember Me and they think, this is kind of boring. And so they don't really choose it. The other issue with anti-tunnel, or not anti-tunnel, the other issue with endgame perks is they tend to feel really cheap on the survivor side. A good example of this is Noed, because for the big reason why it's such a popular endgame perk is, one, a lot of new players struggle with endgame. They think it's just GG, go next, when the last gen pops. And Noed is one of the most visually striking endgame perks because it's just a free one-shot. Last gen pops, you one-shot the dude, and now the survivors have to find the blasted totem. And for a new player, it's visually distinct, and they're like, okay, this is a powerful perk. I feel like I can do something during the endgame now. But No Way Out takes the approach that Noed has, but does it in a much more healthy spin. You have to get fresh hooks, so it prevents the good old tunnel wunnel that everyone loves and adores. Surely. Hold on, I made something a little here.
I was just going to say, like I said earlier too, Noed is also, and I think we've noticed this from behavior, there's a reason we don't get that many killer second chance perks. they're just, as much as I would love to see more of them, the idea of the killer kind of having like a trump card second chance perk, because the closest thing we have are like trick perks, like Spirit Fury, right?
Yeah.
But it's not really a second chance. That's like like you build it up to use. Noah just activates. There's no
Yeah.
yeah, and the counterplay to it is do all the bones. You
Yeah,
know?
even in the case of Spirit Fury, you're able to pre-drop against the killer
Mhm.
once you realize the trick.
Yeah.
In the case of Noed, though, it's just, oh, I get one tap, GG. But in the case of No Way Out, you need to get fresh hooks, which builds up the perk's power, because it can still activate without tokens, but it's very weak.
Mhm.
Instead, the perk rewards you for going out of your way to get fresh hooks, which is very good for any type of perk to promote fresh target chasing rather than going for the good old tunnel wunnel. The effect is visually striking. You see the entity blocking the exit gates, and the effect is strong. No Way Out is probably one of the strongest perks in the entire game, but at the same time, it's a perk that most people don't really cry about because they're like, oh, okay, it's No Way Out. The killer was actually playing fairly. They should be rewarded for playing fairly, and No Way Out is one of the best ways that Behavior have ever done this. Now, there is one issue I think No Way Out is going to suffer in recent days, but it depends on the popularity of this recent perk that came out, and that's None Are Free. So, this is a perk that came with the Ghoul, and None Are Free works exactly like No Way Out. You gain fresh hooks, and once the endgame starts, the perk activates. But unlike No Way Out, where the survivor has to open the gate and then they are alerted, None Are Free blocks windows and pallets. The trick of No Way Out was that, oh, I can't work on the exit gate, but I still have options to keep myself safe. I can run to this window, I can hide, I can use this pallet in order to loop, while my teammates wait till the gates are open. But in the case of None Are Free, No Way Out, there's nothing survivors can do. They can't loop because the windows and pallets are blocked. They can't open the gates because the gates are blocked.
Mhm.
All they can do is stealth play. And for the longest time, stealth play has been a little touchy, to say the least. But we'll talk about stealth play in another moment when I talk about the survivors.
Yeah, and I feel like No Way Out again, like because we've seen this philosophy, especially with the newer perk that I forget you just mentioned that I forget the name of.
None are free?
Yeah, None Are Free, where this idea of a perk activating on like fresh hooks. We see this a bit with Pain Res, which is a different case, but with Pain Res, with Grim Embrace also, and it's a design philosophy I really kind of wish Behavior would do a little bit more. Somehow by making some perks more powerful, but have that be the trade off where you have to spread your hooks out. And no,
I think.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I wanted to let you know that there is one perk that has a similar philosophy like this, but the issue is that its effect promotes a little bit more of a negative gameplay loop, and that is Grim Embrace. So Grim Embrace works similar to No Way Out. You get fresh hooks, you block generators when you get away from the hook. It's that final effect that's the issue, though, because once all the gates are blocked, if you hook the obsession, you're getting no aura reading effect.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what is all the survivors going to do? They can't work on generators. If they're all healed, they can't heal themselves. If there's no like secondary objective perks in the match, they're just going to go for the hook. So this teaches the killer, during that 45-second window, I should proxy camp.
I feel like that's just a byproduct of its original design.
Yeah, I concur.
Yeah,
it's a solid concept. It's just failed in that small little issue. And a lot of perks I'm going to talk about in honorable mentions, especially for survivor perks, has this issue where they have solid core foundations. It's just that they have these tiny little nitpicks that keep them away from being perfect.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, because a lot of the perks I'm sure we're going to mention are ones that just kind of have a give and take and aren't like immediately apparent with how like good they are necessarily. Because again, I mean I've talked about it in the past where a lot of the perks that survivors and killers tend to enjoy and use the most are the ones that are always good every match. Because No Way Out, for example, if you never get to end game, I mean, it was basically a dead perk slot. Not to say that doesn't make it good, but you know, every time I bring the fucking perk, I just end up winning it two chans or something.
You know what? Same, but I still bring it around. It's a pretty picture.
Well, it's also like No Way Out is also a perk. Like I would never, one survivors never complain about the killer having it most times, but also it's a perk that if I bring it on killer, if I win even before the gates get touched, I'm still not going to complain I brought it most of the time, right? It's like it's good insurance, and it just does its job.
Yeah.
And it doesn't directly lead to anything either. The survivors can play around No Way Out.
True. Like, it's going to become a little bit worrisome depending on the popularity if none are free. But
none are free.
It's still a solid core.
Yeah, none are free is going to be interesting to see in the next few months because I don't think it's going to be that popular. I was going to try it on Chucky, and the problem with Chucky with it is that you want pallets to be dropped. So I don't run it on him even in my in-game builds because Chucky is like a really, really good in-game killer because of portable TV. So you like ideally in-game builds are not that bad on him, but I'm just glad we have another option for in-game. That's really it.
Yeah,
because we don't have too many.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, the killers are slowly getting to the double digits for endgame. Survivors sadly only have like 4 or 5.
Yeah.
I think the last one they added was Wake Up.
Well, I think it's because ideally the survivors don't want, like, once the survivors get an in-game, it's supposed to be the killer's time, right? That's supposed to be when the killer's the strongest, is right there at in-game. The longer the match goes, the stronger the killer, in theory, is supposed to be.
Fair enough. Alrighty, let's move on to your second perk now.
This is the one that's going to get me some hate. Corrupt Intervention.
I can see it.
Corrupt Intervention is such a well-designed perk, I think it should be base kit. That's how good, well-designed I think it is.
Like, a lot of people for the longest time thought Corrupt would be the best, like, early game collapse idea.
And, well, the thing is, because that when a lot of people came up with that idea, it was before its change. And after its change, I think it would be even better for an early game collapse. But the thing with Corrupt Intervention is every killer can use it. It's good insurance in case the first chase lasts too long. It causes survivors to split up at the beginning of the match and come to you, so you don't have to walk all the way across the map. It forces survivors into a situation where they can't just autopilot. They have to kind of think about where they are. There's viable counterplay in the sense of you can wait it out if you absolutely want to, or you can just wait for that first down. Because that's the other thing is the way it's designed is to ensure killers like Blight, Nurse, even to a degree someone like Chucky or Wraith, people with like good early chases can't just like abuse it. It's also
another thing to know about Corrupt Intervention is that it's pretty much become a must pick for Trapper and Hag mains. Most Trapper and Hag mains.
I was gonna say it depends on who you ask.
Like I said, most, because it solves a big issue that the trap killers tend to have, and that is the fact they need to spend time waddling around the map, setting up their traps, hoping that survivors aren't piggyback riding on them and disabling every single time they set one trap. But Corrupt Intervention pretty much helps bring survivors closer to you. It makes pretty much your web a little bit smaller enough to feel more lethal. It gives you a bit more time to set up.
Yeah,
and overall, it's good.
Yeah, and like I said, it's not too oppressive because if the killer is able to get it down that fast, then it really, pretty much didn't do anything. If the killer takes too long to get it down, you guys can split up, and automatically you're in a better position because the killer's taking too long. It does have one kind of unhealthy design, and that's since it blocks the 3 farthest gens. It can lead to killers being able to set up a 3-gen very easily, but that's more of a problem with the game and not Corrupt Intervention itself.
Yeah, in the case of that, the perk does disable once you get the first down.
Yeah.
Which, I will admit, was probably one of the smartest changes that Behavior made for a very solid or a very solid concept of a perk already. And I suspect they did this nerf mostly to deal with the higher echelon of killers, Blight, Nurse.
Well, for a
Pretty much
while
only
there,
those two killers because they're the only ones that exist. Oh, and Ghoul, but Ghoul didn't exist at the time frame.
for a while there, Corrupt Intervention was basically required to run until 6.1 happened, right? And that part of the reason why was just because it other than right, like I said, right now I mostly because I run it on Chucky a lot. I mostly run it on him for insurance because the first chase for Chucky can be very bad. But on a killer like Blight or Nurse, if you know what you're doing, that first chase is probably gonna go just fine.
Yeah.
So like
but
it's just good insurance. Back in the day though, before it was changed, it was just good. Like it wasn't like insurance, it was just fucking good. There was no reason not to run it.
I'm going to say something. And the way I'm going to say it, I'm going to quote a scene from JoJo. I'm about to say something that God may find judgmental. I think Corrupt Intervention is a predecessor for Lethal Pursuer.
Yeah. No. Well, the thing is, because like I just said, I usually run it on Chucky. If I'm not running Corrupt, I'm running Lethal. Like
Honestly, me too.
Yeah, well, that's how. Depending on the killer I play, it's either Lethal Pursuer or Corrupt. It's just like on Ken, I run Lethal Pursuer because Corrupt doesn't do much. On Chucky, it depends on how I'm feeling. If I just want to like just get into the game and play, it's Lethal Pursuer. If I'm like trying a bit, it's Corrupt Intervention.
Yeah, like overall, the Corrupt Intervention is a solid concept. It has a strong core. It does the job and it does it extraordinarily well. And behavior managed to hammer out the more annoying elements about it, aka the 2 minutes hold where Nurse and Blight could just force survivors into their den, pretty much.
It also has like I said, it has some decent counterplay to it too. Like one, if you're able to run the killer for 2 minutes, you technically won anyways. Two, if you really, really, really want to get those long gen or those farther gens like done, just go down faster.
Or you're like me and you go the extra spicy mile and you run no their plot twist.
Yeah, because you knew you were going up against Corrupt Intervention.
Exactly. Like, come on. It's clearly run every single game. Clearly the only counter to such a evil perk is plot twist no mither. Remember back in the days when self-care no mither was a meme meta?
What were we talking about? Oh, Corrupt Intervention! Yeah. What were you saying? Sorry.
Overall, I think it's a very solid core. Behavior managed to iron out the issues they had with the upper echelon of killers abusing it, but overall, I think it's good. It's a solid idea. It has a job. It does it really well. I completely agree with you. I think it's one of the best designed perks in the game.
Yeah. And on to your second pick.
Okay, the next perk I'm going to talk about, you already know, because you have slowly joined my army by becoming addicted to it in recent days. And that is Scourgehook Jagged Compass.
Oh, Jagged... Yeah, no, I agree, yeah.
So, before we talk about Jagged Compass, let's talk about Scourgehooks. Because I love Scourgehooks. I think the day that they were created, I was so happy. Because behavior for the longest time, since like, how long was it? Like, when they first did their summer event with the grill hooks that were unique?
The barbecue event, yeah.
Yeah. Like, when they did that, I think that was like year 2 or 3? I'm a little bit iffy on that one, but that's mostly because I wasn't around during that time. But for the longest time, I thought to myself, you're able to do unique hooks in game modes. Why don't you make a unique perk? And no, I'm not talking about Morbius Shrine, okay? Like, Morbius Shrine is a cool thing and all, but I want it on other hooks, not the basement. I don't like looking at the basement. It's a decrepit old thing, just like the luck mechanic. And poor Skull Merchant's balance, but that's gone out the window long, long ago.
I want to start running the current Monster Shrine. I want to do the math testing on it.
But anyways, yeah. So when they introduced Scourge hooks, it made me very happy because Scourge hooks have a very solid idea. Pretty much turn 4 random hooks into unique hooks that you have to waddle your way over to have very strong effects. It's similar to something like Boon or Hexes, but they have their own unique little gimmick that you need to follow around with. I like when perks have secondary objectives like this, because it turns the game to be a little bit more interesting. Now, I think some of the Scourge hooks in the game were a little bit goofy with their balance, Pain Resonance, but or Hangman's Trick is another fun one to talk about. In fact, I think I talked about that a lot during our worst design perks.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, in the case of Jagged Compass, the reason why I really like it, and I think it's one of the best design perks in the game, it avoids, first of all, Jagged Compass is a support perk. Whenever I talk about any of the perks in Why No One Uses, I bring up a perk archetype called support perks. These are perks that fulfill a supporting role for an archetype of perks, but they tend to have one big flaw, and that's the fact that they completely fall apart by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
A good example of a support perk is Open-Handed. Extends the range of aura reading perks. It's a solid idea. It works with Kindred, it works with Bond, very wonderful perk. The problem is, Open-Handed is completely dead on hand if you run it alone.
Yeah,
but
it did counter old knockout, by the way. I learned this a couple months ago.
In the case of Jagged Compass, however, it avoids the issue that support perks normally follow with, as it has an effect by itself.
Mm-hmm.
It reveals the generator with the most progress for 10 seconds. Not a very strong effect. It's kind of the effect that Pain Res used to have with its Intel effect. And it's bringing it back, which I actually really like. But the main effect of Jagged Compass is that you convert normal hooks into Scourge hooks. Now, Behavior have said this a few times. They've mentioned that the perk is bugged, but they don't fix the bugs, and I think they've forgotten at the point that they're just like, yeah, no, it's intended.
I thought it was in the patch notes for this bug. I know what you're talking about.
I thought it was in the patch notes, then we keep looking and it's never there. And I was playing the other day with a combo and it still worked. I'm just like, you know what, I give up. Behavior have no idea what they want to do. But I'm thinking it's core, and I hope it stays this way because it's such a really nice gimmick with the perk. So, Jagged Compass is very versatile with the entire roster of Scourge Hook perks. It works with Pain Res because you get to see which generator popped with the effect. It works with Floods of Rage and Gift of Pain because, more specifically, Floods of Rage and Gift of Pain have a very cute gimmick with Jagged Compass.
Mm-hmm.
Floods of Rage and Gift of Pain activate when you unhook a survivor from a Scourge hook. But Jagged Compass converts a normal hook into a Scourge hook. How the game is registering it right now is that Jagged Compass is converting the hook into a Scourge hook first, and then Floods of Rage and Gift of Pain is popping afterwards.
Right.
Which means that once you unhook a survivor from a normal hook, the effects of Floods of Rage and Gift of Pain are activating, even if it was a normal hook. It just strengthens the designs of Floods of Rage and Gift of Pain. It helps to reduce the weak elements, that being RNG. It also synergizes with Hangman's Trick, because you get to make more Scourge hooks, meaning you have more AoE aura reading while carrying a survivor. And it also slightly works with Morbius Shrine, because now you have more hooks that you're able to place a survivor on, and if you place them on a normal hook, well, now that hook is a Scourge hook that you can use Morbius Shrine's effect.
Mm-hmm.
Simply put, Scourge Hook, Jagged Compass is taking the idea that people had, which was, let us choose what hooks we want for the Scourge Hook, not let it be RNG, and they made it a perk. But the beautiful thing about Jagged Compass is that it is not a must pick. Because you run Jagged Compass, either so it can synergize with the rest of the roster, or you take another Scourge Hook to enhance the current effects that Scourge Hooks already have.
Yeah.
Because Jagged Compass as a base effect is pretty okay. So if I want to run a full Scourge Hook build, I would want something like Pain Res, Floods of Rage, Gift of Pain, and then I could run something like Morbius Shrine or Hangman's Trick. But here's the catch. when behavior add more and more scourge hooks, it's going to make Jagged Compass begin to peel a little bit away, because it's like, do I really want Jagged Compass to choose scourge hooks, or do I want to boost the current scourge hooks on the map?
Yeah, and something else you mentioned there, though, with the whole support perk thing is I think behavior's learning their lesson with this, because we just got what is the new one
Rapid
coming?
response.
Is it rapid response? Yeah, they learned. I feel like they learned their lesson with that one as well, because it's the same basic philosophy, but for exhaustion perks.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great, and I kind of hope they go back through for some of the other support perks like open handed and give them some effect when you're not necessarily running the aura perk, because we also saw this with boons too. Boon illumination, as bad as it is technically a support perk for boons, but it's also a boon that works on its own.
Exactly.
And yeah, and Jagged Compass's base effect too. The whole, like, shows the aura of the gem with the most progress. That's not a worthless effect by any means.
It's a good effect. Like, being able to know where to go is one of the most important things for perk design in Dead by Daylight. It's why something like barbecue and chili was so popular for the longest time. That, and also the blood point incentives. May it rest in peace.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, because that's the thing. And if anything, I'm kind of addicted to its effect to the point to where I do think it should be basic. um,
See, I finally got to you.
that would be too much. Well, no, I've been running it for a while. It's just like it makes Gift of Pain so much better. Gift of Pain compared to Pain Res had the issue of consistency, because Pain Res, it doesn't really matter when you get that Pain Res hook. It does its job. It uses all its tokens. Blah blah blah. Right.
Yeah.
Gift of Pain though had the problem of, to get the most use out of it, you kind of want to hook everybody on a scourge hook. And before, the problem with that was RNG, and now that Jagged Compass exists, Gift of Pain has that over Pain Res now.
Yep.
And while it is a combination, Gift of Pain's not bad on its own by any stretch of the imagination, but Jagged Compass just helps it out a lot. On the one issue I would say Jagged Compass has, from my design philosophy, is that it's never bad to bring. Unless you're just not bringing a Scourge Hook. But even
I'm going
then...
to say this. I think when we get more Scourge Hooks in the game, Jagged Compass will begin to be brought down a little more. Because it will continue to raise the question, do I want more Scourge Hooks on the map to activate my effects? Or do I want to boost the Scourge Hooks that already exist with more effects? It's like stacking with Floods of Rage and Gift of Pain and Pain Res and then something else.
Yeah, that's the one problem I do kind of have with it, also, is it doesn't limit, but it does mean behavior has to be a little bit more wary about what a Scourge Hook can do, because Jagged Compass exists, right? Like, what if there was a Scourge Hook where when you put the Survivor on a Scourge Hook, you get like 15% haste for 10 seconds or something, right?
Yeah, I think in the case of that, it's balanced by the fact that if the haste activated when they got unhooked, then it would be an issue. But if it's from placing them on the hook, it would be fine. It would be similar to Furtive Chase.
Yeah.
In that regards.
It definitely leads into an interesting... It's the same thing with, like, Eyes of Belmont. It's another support perk. Because it has its own effect. I think is it 8 seconds after a gen pops? I think it's 8 seconds.
It's 3 seconds plus the 2 it support boosts.
Yeah. So, but the thing with Eyes of Belmont, now that it exists, every single aura perk that comes out for survivors has to be balanced around the fact that it exists. It's only 2 seconds, but that can make the world of difference. It's the same thing with Lethal Pursuer for Killer, right? Since the change...
think in the case of Eyes of Belmont, I think behavior had enough time with Lethal to realize what types of auras should be affected by extension effects rather than others.
Yeah.
Because we now see that Eyes does not stack with object or like fixed aura reading durations like A Nurse's Calling or Awakened Awareness.
Yeah.
For
No. Lethal does work on Awakened.
Oh, it does work on Awakened?
So Awakened Awareness, the reason why it does this, when they changed the value, it went from 2 seconds to 0 seconds. So
lazy developers
so
again.
so Lethal Pursuer still increases it. It adds 2 seconds to the 0 seconds. It's not
That's
like
actually so funny.
it's not like Cigar Box on Clown, because Cigar Box on Clown is based on the invigoration time. It's not its own timer.
Yeah.
So Lethal doesn't do anything there. It's really funny, and the only reason I know this, because a lot of people knew this after the change happened, but I discovered this when I was doing the anniversary event last year, because I was running Awakened Awareness and Lethal Pursuer. that's how I figured it out.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, a lot of Spirit players knew about it, because they still run Awakened Awareness and Spirits.
Of course, Spirit players know this. They find the cheapest forms of play, but then again, it's Spirit. Understandable. All right, your third perk for Killer. Go.
It's my favorite perk in the entire video game. Save the best for last.
Oh yeah.
I even before its nerf, I think Save the Best for Last is one of the best designed perks in the entire game. And the reason for that is because it's a build-up perk. It doesn't do anything for you at the start of the match. Both the killer and the survivor have to play around it existing. It helps killers that don't have the best chase powers and only like M1 for their damage. It can't really be abused too much by M2 killers. It can, but like to their detriment.
And then there's the ghoul, but like we said, the ghoul plays by his own rules.
It has a build-up, a substantial effect, and if the survivors are paying attention, even in a non-group setting, the obsession can come in body block for you. It's not as prevalent as it would be in a group setting, right? But it can happen.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I feel like the fact that it like builds up stacks. I love perks like that. That's why I'm really falling in love with Forever Entwined recently. This idea
also, when you mentioned Forever Entwined, I need to go on this tangent again. Those greedy developers taking away my pickup speed stacking effect. How dare those greedy developers? I was going to have a 62% pickup speed and they had to hard cap it to 42. I will never forgive them for this.
I would rather that than them have to nerf both the perks.
I am still going to riot for days on end about that. And then there was the haste and hinder stacking, which I told you about, which made me very sad because my poor Blood Pact Power of 2 gameplay, its solo queue is tarnished.
What if they just buff Power of 2 to the same level?
It won't be the same though.
It would be. It'd be better. You have an open perk slot.
It still wouldn't be the same because in the case of Power 2 and Blood Pact, it was a cheesy combo that was funny, but...
Yeah, but now you don't need the combo for the cheesy funny thing.
But it makes it more efficient. It removes the funny element of it. I don't run it because it's strong, I run it because it's funny.
But that's my thing. You could still do that if they buff the number.
I'm still going to be upset about it.
But no, for real, because I heard a bunch of people saying like Rapid's going to be bad. Now, first off, no one was his stacking with Rapid wasn't like a thing that often outside of Clown and Larry. And like, while I feel bad for them, at the same time, Clown's fine. Larry's also fine without this. But like, even like with the Power of 2, like Soul Bond, it's like, okay, if they buff the numbers enough. So it's almost as if you were bringing both of the perks. Could that mean you could throw in another perk in there to not necessarily make it better, but to even like make it more memeier?
Like technically, yeah, but I'm just more so memeing because I know this is overall a much more healthier change for the long term of the game, especially since behavior I suspect will be adding more haste and hinder perks in the game at some point. I'm not sure when. But it's more so I'm just memeing at the point because I'm just... It feels so weird that only now they're deciding to look at Blood Pact Power of 2 and the haste stacking thing. When Hope MFT died out like... How many months ago?
Uh,
It's been a while.
yeah, I don't even remember. I still forget MFT was the way it was for like 6 months. I still forget that was a thing for like half a year. That's insane to think about. No, it was
Yeah.
the patch before Chucky.
I
Yeah.
see, I see.
So last November, not last, the November before last. So November of 2023.
Yeah. But
Um,
anyways, back to Stabiffle. I do agree with you. I think that the perk overall had a very solid core, and it was very fun to play. I will say one of my favorite things about the perk was stack maintenance. It's a
mhm.
big reason why I enjoyed running on killers like Deathslinger. And unfortunately, when they changed it so it lost tokens with M2, so killers like Deathslinger and Demo sadly were unable to quote unquote abuse it. But I understood the reason behind it. It was very
I
frustrating dealing with it, and there was people complaining about its camping capabilities, and I do understand that.
It can't do that anymore. I can tell you that right now. I've been running it
Yeah,
for a
not
while on
anymore.
can. Yeah, even if at 8 stacks, they can still safely save somebody.
Mm,
What was I going to say? The one problem it does have now isn't even necessarily a problem with the nerf they did. It was the way it's coded.
yep.
Because for those who don't know, every single trickster knife you lose a stack.
It works similar to I made a video on Blue Sky. Self-preservation. Pretty much for some weird reason, some killers have weirdly programmed secondary fires with multi-hit powers.
Mm-hmm.
For example, Artist Crow will make survivors lose a token even if it's just a swarm.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
Deathslinger got hit hard by the Stibiffle nerf too because not only does it lose it,
it's they
it
lose the token when the harpoon connects,
yeah.
regardless if it deals a damage state or not. The moment that harpoon sticks on a survivor, they lose tokens.
So if he chases the obsession with all 8 stacks and spears them both times, he literally loses all of his stacks.
You will
It's
also you will also be glad to know that Unknown's UVX for some weird reason escapes this weird coding clause. Instead, the survivor will lose the tokens if he deals damage with the UVX, rather than if the UVX just weakens them. I suspect it's a coding thing they did with the UVX, similar to Plague, and I will happily tell you, Plague does not lose tokens when she uses Stabiffle.
that was probably because of the thing they did with plot twist, and there was another perk that let them do it. Because you could run plot twist, and if you were injured, you just drop to the ground, and the killer would lose 2 stacks of Stibiffle.
A happy, a happy accident, we'll call it.
I still
So,
really enjoyed that aspect. I wish they didn't get rid of it. It's just because it's such a niche thing that I just don't think it was a problem.
yeah. Like, I will say, I really like the stack maintenance about Stabiffle. It was a cute minigame by itself, but I understand the logic behind removing it. It
Well,
made the perk overall a lot healthier.
even now, the stack maintenance is still there. It's just rather than do I hit this person with my M2, it's do I chase this person knowing I'll lose stacks.
Yeah, exactly.
And what I will
It's
say,
just it's a different form of stack maintenance from the one I'm used to.
as a Stabiffle enjoyer who's used this perk since since I started playing the game and after its nerfs both times, is
Hmm.
people really need to understand that 4 stacks of Stabiffle is more than enough. like, like I'm not saying like if the obsession is there and someone else is there, and you have the option to not chase the obsession to lose stacks, like yeah,
Hmm.
go for the other person, sure. But if you find the obsession and you have no idea where anyone else is, just hit the obsession. You'll live. Trust me, 4 stacks is not that big of a deal. Also,
But
another fun fact about Stabiffle, you can still gain stacks when the obsession dies, as long as they're still in the like going up in the air animation.
yep, because they are still technically in the game. They're just
Yeah,
going through a death animation.
yeah. Until that,
Also,
go ahead.
I will say this. The reason why survivors cry when they lose at least or go from 8 to 6 tokens is because it's like that Star Wars theme where the guy's just like, more! More!
I'm
We need
just,
more!
I'm just saying, like the 4 stacks is really, it's 4 stacks is more than enough. I didn't mention it here, and I don't really have too many honorable mentions, but I will bring it back up again because I didn't want to bring up new perks. But Forever Entwined is also very good at this. But the difference with Forever Entwined is it just progressively gets better as the match goes on, and you don't lose anything. You don't have to play around it. It just exists, and you get a benefit from it. It's great.
Yeah.
But on to your third perk.
Alrighty, this one is going to sound a little bit weird, but I need you to stick with me, alright? You need to understand my logic, how I'm cooking here. My third perk is Thrilling Tremors.
Okay.
So, I will need to remind people what Thrilling Tremors does, because I'm sure most people have already forgotten what the perk did the moment it dropped. It's a Ghostface perk. The moment you pick a survivor up, all generators not being worked on are blocked for 16 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And the generators that are being worked on by survivors aren't blocked. So the general idea of Thrilling Tremors is that it's a hybrid of intel gathering and lockdown. Now, as it is a hybrid, this means that it's not exceptional at either category. Similar to something like Fire Up, it's a jack of all trades type of perk. But I have to say, there's no perk like Thrilling Tremors that feels so unique in its intel gathering. Because although its value is weak, it provides something really special. It tells you what generators are available, similar to Jagged Compass, so you know what you need to go towards. It blocks the inactive generators, which forces survivors to continue moving forward. And the intel it provides is very unique to the game. And one of the most interesting things is it provides a unique form of counterplay. This isn't like aura reading with like Lethal Pursuer and Barbecue, where you run Discordance, and ta-da, the perk is now completely shut down because of one funny, goofy counter perk on the survivor side. No, Thrilling Tremors has the unique gameplay approach of, oh, I know the killer has Thrilling, I see a survivor got downed, I'm gonna hop onto this generator next to me, work on it, just for like 2% progress. They pick the survivor up, I can let go of the generator, and now I trick the killer into thinking someone was over there. Because technically I am over there, but I'm now running away while they're going for the hook. Now, it's a small reward, but it's one that feels reasonable, especially since this is an effect that killers are going to do literally 99% of the time, unless you're a slugging twins or Slug-a-Cope player in 2025. But simply put, picking a survivor up is something you're going to do most of the time. And having a small reward to tell you, okay, this is where you go, all the other stuff are blocked for a short time, move. Well, it just feels a little nice.
Yeah, and for a bit there was a debate on whether you should bring it or Barbecue and Chili, which it really just depended on the killer. But even nowadays, the one problem I have with Thrilling Tremors is just how the cooldown works. First off, I don't think it should even have a cooldown. I don't think it's necessary. But second off, if it does have to keep the cooldown for whatever reason, it should just work like Starstruck.
Yeah.
Where if you're carrying somebody and it goes off cooldown, it still activates. Because I don't understand why it does that.
The reason why I have Thrilling Tremors on this list is unlike something like other perks that people tend to think are perfectly designed, like Dead Hard. You don't have to worry if you buff Thrilling Tremors, because the core foundation of the perk is solid. Like, the simple idea of Thrilling Tremors is, oh, I pick Survivor up, generators being inactive, they're blocked for a little bit of time, and I now know where to go. It's a simple approach that makes perks beloved like Barbecue and Chili, Jagged Compass, like any other aura reading perk. But the difference is it's not an aura read. It's a lockdown perk that is very unique compared to the others in the game. Making it not feel as cheesy as something like Deadlock or Dead Man's Switch. But it still feels dramatic in the way it portrays its effect.
It's also funny too, because when Distortion was becoming super meta, meta is the wrong word, but when Distortion was becoming more widely used,
let's call it tier 0.
When Distortion was becoming more widely used, I'm surprised we didn't see that much Thrilling Tremors during that time, because Thrilling Tremors is an information perk that can't be countered. Well, let me rephrase that. It can be countered, but the counterplay is not just run a perk to counter it, right? The counterplay is like active. Like the survivors kind of have to like play around it. It's similar to again Dead Man's Switch. The counterplay for Dead Man's Switch is just get off the gen before the hook happens. Right? Now, whether or not that's good counterplay or not is a different different conversation. But again, it has this effect that it always is useful. It's just not the most apparent use. It's good on every killer. I can't think of a killer that can't run this perk, except maybe like Oni and Plague, maybe.
Like the only killers I can think of who can't run the perk are like slug-focused killers, like Twins or Oni and
Plague.
Sadako back in the days of Yonder when
Myers.
When she loved to slug people for stacks of Condemn.
Yeah, but otherwise, I do agree. I kind of hope Thrilling gets some love soon. I think it is a perk that deserves a little bit of a buff. It's funny to say because Ghostface's other terrible perk got a buff, or it got a full rework.
Furtive Chase, I think, got a rework or two, and I'm All Ears has always been a widely recognized good perk. It's more so it was kind of a chokehold by Nurse and Pyramid Head.
It got buffed recently, so
yeah, it got buffed recently because I think the developers are just like, we're never going to have this character be reasonable whatsoever. Let's just ignore her.
Well,
as long as Nurse doesn't break the game like she was with Starstruck, we should be Gucci.
That patch was an interesting one where that happened, where I'm All Ears got buffed, because it was a patch where I think the devs were trying to make aura builds on Killer, in particular, more viable and more of a better option to encourage killers to go chase rather than just like holding a 3-gen or just camping an area, not necessarily a hook, but like an entire area. I think that's what they were trying to do. The problem is, like we've said multiple times, is when you use perks for that purpose, if people don't bring the perks anyways, it doesn't do anything.
Exactly. But this has always been the logic with Behavior's balance philosophy. The best way to solve it is by releasing a perk that people can spend money on.
Yeah, like Shoulder the Burden, and that's a different can of worms.
Yeah, that's a different can of worms, and I will talk about Shoulder eventually. Don't worry, it's not on my list, but we'll talk about it.
It's not on my list either, and what I will say is Shoulder the Burden's base idea is actually fine.
I will talk more about it when we get to the Survivor perks. But overall, I just like Thrilling. I think it's a cute perk. It has a solid identity that is far in between one of the most unique in the game. I don't think Behavior have ever released a perk that... It's weird. Thrilling Tremors feels like a lore perk that they were making for Ghostface to show off, hey, Ghostface is tied so heavily to the entity, he calls upon the entity from a pickup. That is so sick. But then we got perks like Crowd Control, Blood Favor, and other stuff. But in the case of those ones, I feel like they are more aggressive. In the case of Thrilling, it's more so like a bit of the entity going like, you know what, you did a good job. I'm going to help you out a little bit. Rather than just being, what do you want? You slapped a survivor? Fine, I'll block the pallet for you.
Yeah, and again, like it's one of those things too where I don't think Thrilling Tremors is like what's the word I'm looking for? I don't think it's underrated. I think it's underlooked. Like it's overlooked, right? Because there's like, again, why run Thrilling Tremors when you can just run Barbecue or Grim Embrace and get similar effects to both of them? And I think the obvious answer, like I said earlier, is just because there's no obvious counter to Thrilling. Plus, no one sees it coming. The other problem Thrilling has is, and it's funny because you mentioned another perk that basically does the same thing. Jagged Compass kind of replaced Thrilling Tremors.
In the case of Jagged Compass, I will say, it keeps its place in its particular archetype, but Thrilling Tremors maintains its core identity with the fact it calls the entity rather than, I highlight something in an aura.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great and all, but we already have like 20 other aura reading based perks in the game. Thrilling just helps maintain its core identity with something unique that helps it pop out. And in the case of Dead by Daylight, a lot of Survivor and Killer players they enjoy perks that are a bit more poppy with effects. It's a big reason why something like Dead Hard is so popular. You see an animation, you see the Survivor go glowy white. Same thing with Reassurance, and Enemies has its own particular niche group. I'm part of that cult myself, if you need to know. And I will say I did have Enemies on the list for a long time, but then I thought of 3 other perks that were much more fitting.
Yeah, Enemies, I feel like it's just it's one of those things where it's like, why not just run Windows? It's the problem with Enemies. Plus, if the killer just breaks every pallet on the map, it doesn't do much for you. That's the other problem.
True.
With it. Which is why we need a perk that rebuilds pallets. Just saying.
They do it in 2v8. I think they're busy experimenting with 2v8s. They're trying to see what other ideas they can pull off.
I'm just saying, if we had a perk where you have to do 40% of a gen and you can remake a pallet, I would be cool with that.
I wouldn't be upset with that. We already are able to make a shadow clone.
Speaking of Survivor perks, which is what we're moving on to now.
Before we get to Survivor perks.
Honorable mentions. Yes, my bad.
Yes. All 3 of my honorable mentions go to the Unknown's perks.
All 3 of them?
All 3 of them. Because Unknown has such a funny design with the perks that I just can't help but love them. Because if you read through Unknown's lore, a lot of people for the longest time wonder to themselves, why on earth does Unknown have a Molotov as a power? They were marketed as this weird creepypasta monster. Why on earth do they pull out this weird tentacle thing from their neck and shoot this purple blob? Well, if you read through the lore, it's because the Unknown is a bunch of things and nothing at the exact same time. And in particular with the lore, they tease a bunch of things like Project Apple Pie of a CIA experiment gone wrong with hallucinogenics.
Mm-hmm.
And possibly the Unknown is an alien that's body snatches people, or they could just be this weird looking serial killer. And to be fair, it is known in the Dead by Daylight universe we have stuff like Hillbilly as movies. We have it in the Legion comic, and Bubba is a candy brand. It's a chocolate bar. But in the case of Unknown, the reason why I have all 3 of his perks for honorable mentions is because all 3 of them are designed around those 3 ideas that people had of what Unknown is supposed to be. And you actually can see it in their flavor text itself. So, Unbound, you vault a window, you run a little bit faster. The flavor text says, I heard it running, it was getting closer. It feels like Unbound was designed to represent the alien part of Unknown, where it's it's this weird creature that just runs at you really quickly. In the case of Unforeseen, it leans much more heavily into the stalkery serial killer type. As it hides your terror radius, you become undetectable, you place your terror radius on a gen, and the flavor text says, Mom, if you find this, I'm sorry. And as a final journal entry. And then in the case of Undone, this leans more into the Project Apple Pie hallucinogenics experiments with technology. Because you miss skill checks, Unknown can just kick a generator, it blocks it with the entity, and it gets more progress. It's the only thing that's focused on technology outside of Unforeseen, but I think this is more so a gameplay approach compared to Undone, which is more thematic. And then the flavor text is erratic behavior and machinery could be related to redacted, further testing required from the OSS report, which leans very heavily in CIA type of gimmicks.
I think the only one I would argue with is Undone.
I agree. Gameplay-wise, I think Undone is one of the weirdest design perks, and I do not like its... I don't like how it was handled. I can see the approach to it. I think I talked about it with worst design perks in the game. But I still can't help but love it because it's designed with that particular thematic approach to make Unknown really feel like all 3 of these things that the lore builds up. But at the exact same time, he's none of them. Because the Unknown is a king or a queen, and we stan them. Yes.
I didn't really have any honorable mentions. If I had to come up with one,
Sorry.
but if I had to
I
come,
accidentally pushed the wrong button. I wanted to do this. There we go. We stand unknown and what they want to be.
do you have a soundboard just ready?
No, I don't have a soundboard. It's just Discord.
Oh, okay. The only like real honorable mention I can think of is Friends to the End.
Yeah, I can see it.
I think Friends to the End being like it's an obsession swapping perk, which is always fun. It's an exposed perk. It's an information perk. It's basically like because unlike what happened with Alien Instinct, which is actually really good now, by the way. I know I mentioned it in my last video or our last video of this. I take back what I said. Alien Instinct is actually really strong right now, but Friends to the End avoided being power crept by barbecue and chili because its effect has no range limit, right? There's no real way around it other than getting into a locker. And on top of that, even if you do hook the obsession, you still get a benefit by swapping the obsession. So it's also good from a gameplay perspective because it makes you swap targets, right? You're going after this person, okay, now you hook them, all right, now the obsession's exposed, go after them, down them, put them on a hook. It makes a new obsession, so now you go after somebody else, and then it has its own little mini gameplay loop. And I think that's what makes it like really good to me, as far as like a well designed perk.
I really like the obsession mechanic as a design, and I think that the developers are starting to cook a little bit more with obsession swapping. And I hope that we get more perks that play around with obsession swapping a little bit more, with like rewarding that approach of gameplay. Because I think we're seeing it more and more.
Mm-hmm.
Like the buff with Nemesis a long time ago. And we also have other stuff like Furtive Chase getting its rework. And overall, Obsession, I think, is a strong core to the game, especially since Halloween came out. We saw that it's a mechanic that has the potential to be good. But at the same time, if it's poorly handled, it can be really not that great.
Well,
for example, when Obsession only arrived when a person ran an Obsession-based hook or perk, meaning that for killers, they didn't want to run Obsession-based perks because they want to see if any of the survivors are running Decisive Strike. And if no one's running Decisive Strike, the Tunnel Funnel's free, baby!
Well, I mean, the other thing with it, too, like because there are still other options. We could definitely get a Scourge hook that like swaps Obsessions or something. That could be interesting.
Exactly. I think that there's a ton of opportunities with the Obsession and Scourge hooks, and even still with Hexes, even though they've been in the game for so long. There's so much potential.
I do wish we had the Obsession mechanic did something more that didn't require a perk. That would be the only thing like I do have a problem with the Obsession mechanic. Because
what do you mean? You get 1,000 extra blood points or so.
I don't know. I just wish it did something else in game. Because for a while there, the only thing being the Obsession really did was everyone in your team knew you were in chase. That was the only thing it did.
Yeah, and then Behavior actually made a smart decision and did the UI updates.
Mm-hmm. But
they learned from Big Brother tentacles over there, and they're like, okay, we'll give tiny ones to the other survivors.
Do you have any other honorable mentions for killer perks?
No, I think I made my statements clear about Unknown.
So moving on to the survivor side of things, this is probably the ones I'm going to get a lot of pushback from. My first one's Autodidact.
I can see it.
I think Autodidact is one of the best designed healing perks in the game on a mere technical level. Because while unlike Botany or Desperate Measures, while it doesn't consistently get use, or even that new perk coming out that I don't know the name of offhand.
I think Do No Harm?
Is it Do No Harm? Or is it Duty of Care? No, it's Do No Harm. Yeah, Duty of Care is the haste one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
gonna level with you. I remember Do No Harm, but I keep forgetting Duty of Care.
I keep forgetting all of it. There's so many. It's like Pokemon. At this point, like, I don't get mad at anyone for not knowing the names. I know the effects. I feel like that's good enough.
As long as I remember Piplup as a Pokemon, I'm Gucci.
But autodidact is, and again, I think you'll notice a trend with a lot of the perks I think are really well designed. They all have their own mini gameplay loops.
Yeah.
And autodidact fits that to a T, because you start off the match healing worse whenever you get a skill check. Like, literally worse. You go in the negative, so you remove healing. And but as you build the stacks up, eventually you can basically heal someone with one skill check.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a very interesting gameplay mechanic, in the sense of you're kind of going out of your way to be this healer character in the game to get those stacks, to be able to get to a point to where your healing is that good. And it also, like, it counters slugging. It really helps with resets. It's a good combo perk with a lot of other perks. Like, it works really well with Deadline because of the increased skill checks. It works really well with Solidarity, especially after the buffs. So, like, I feel like Autodidact just has a lot of these situations where it can be detrimental, but it's a risk-reward thing that leads to, again, to its own gameplay loop. Like, it's like you're playing a different game when you're playing with Autodidact.
Yeah. Like, I will say, I think Autodidact is a really good design perk. And I will say I was considering putting it on my list, but then I began to remember a few goofy interactions with the perk that made it feel a little bit not perfect. But it's not so much the perk's fault, it's more so outside factors that harm it. First of all, we have RNG.
Mm-hmm.
RNG is always going to harm perks like Auto, which have a cute gimmick, but unfortunately suffer from the ever so lovely role of the gods, aka the entity. In the case of other perks, we have Plot Twist. And one thing a lot of survivors did at some point was they would run no matter plot twist. They would run to a corner and have their swift buddy run over to the plot twist player. And they would heal the person back up with autodidact and farm up the stacks over and over and over again. And when the person got picked up, they would just plot twist back on the floor again. And the survivor would build up stacks over and over again. And I think Otstarva or Hens made a video about this. Or someone, I think it's one of those two who were in the video. Where pretty much it was full swift, where one person had plot twist no mither, and everyone was running to the corner to heal this guy to build up auto. And the idea was that they would build up auto so high that whenever any of them went down, they would just pick themselves up with a skill check. Like, it's a cute gimmick, but at the same time, I can understand for the killer side, it is really annoying that the survivor just gets a full HP state because the survivor got lucky because of the roll of a dice. Because, I got a skill check.
When I was doing...
And now 80% health back.
When I was doing that slugging challenge for Karn, it's been over a year now, but when I was doing that slugging challenge for Karn, I mentioned that I didn't care about Unbreakable. It didn't bother me at all. Like, it never really affected the games. Exponential came into play a couple times, and it never really, bothered me either. The only perk I, genuinely struggled with was Autodidact.
Yep.
It was the only one, because it, legitimately, people complain about the healing skill checks and things like that, but if the things do work out in your favor, it's some of the fastest healing in the game.
Yeah.
If not the fastest.
Like, the catch with auto versus other healing perks is that although it starts weak, the moment you get that snowball rolling, it's not stopping. That thing is going to hit you like a train if the RNG is in your favor, and you get 5 tokens.
And again, I combine it with Deadline and Solidarity a lot, so it makes the resets on yourself even faster.
Exactly.
I think it's a really, really smart, even from a thematic perspective, I think it's really cool that David's the one who has it.
I agree. I think it's cute that the teacher has a book perk that allows him to...
Not David. I meant Adam, not David.
Adam, sorry. Adam.
It's funny, too, because I feel like if Adam didn't have this perk, it would be a perk that Rose gets.
I think overall it's a very solid core. It's just unfortunate that other outside factors cause a bit of harm to it whether it be because of RNG or just because of healthy gameplay loop like plot twist.
Mhm.
But in the case of plot twist, it's because plot twist affects like 80% of the game. Because behavior didn't realize, being able to kill yourself actually does a lot of good things for the survivor side, huh? We
Yeah.
never expected that. Also, don't take that out of context, please.
uh,
Anyways.
on to yours.
But
Your first one, by the way.
oh no. Well, remember how I was talking about Dead Hard and Anti-Tunnel?
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna talk about that now. So, back in the days of Yonder, there was a perk that was forever considered a must pick. Because for those of you baby children out there who play Dead by Daylight now and never had the displeasure of playing in year 5 and below, the anti-tunnel mechanic didn't exist in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So the moment you got unhooked, you didn't get haste boosting. You didn't get or not undetectable. You didn't
Endurance.
get endurance. No, you got unhooked, and if the killer looked at you funny, you were on the floor. And sure, we had stuff like Decisive Strike in the game, but it was only Decisive Strike and one other perk. And this is not on my list. It's an honorable mention I'm going to bring up, and it is Borrowed Time.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since Borrowed Time came out, it was considered one of the best anti-tunnel perks in the entire game. Because being able to just extend that duration before you go down was so universally good. Because Borrowed Time had very different effects back in the days of Yonder. First, the effect was, once you get hit by the killer after being unhooked, you had 25 seconds before you were put into the dying state. Because Deep Wounds didn't exist back then. Then, when the Legion came out, Deep Wounds was added into Borrowed Time as an effect, strengthening the perk's identity, because now I can run as long as I want, as long as I don't exit chase, but this is Legion we're talking about. And then they reworked Deep Wounds and it got better. Then they updated it a little bit more. And then the developers realized, everyone is running Borrowed Time. I wonder why. And then they decided, you know what? We'll do you a solid, fam. And they decided to make Borrowed Time base kit. So everyone gained 10 seconds of endurance and haste. But as a result, Borrowed Time got reworked, so instead it was an extension. Now, the issue with Borrowed Time nowadays is it follows the issue I mentioned about passive perks, where they're not super flashy, and because of that, it's a little hard to tell when they are going to fetch value. For higher MMR, if you know exactly what's going on, then you know Borrowed Time is fetching you that value. But for like lower MMR or people who are new to the game, they're not going to realize what on earth is going on. But now we talk about the other anti-tunnel perks that were added into the game. So there are two brackets of anti-tunnel. There's selfish anti-tunnel and selfless anti-tunnel. Selfish are anti-tunnel perks that are, as the name implies, for you and you alone. So this is Decisive Strike and Off the Record.
Mm-hmm.
The issue with these two perks is although they are very good at the anti-tunnel, they can be used very maliciously in swift play, or even in solo queue. Decisive Strike for the longest time has been utilized in bully squads, where a survivor can just hop into a locker and force the killer to grab them out to get the stun. And even before conspicuous actions was added, they would just have 60 seconds of immunity to heal, repair generators, cleanse totems, open chests, do whatever they want. They could even brush their hair. But they pretty much had 60 seconds of immunity where they could do whatever they wanted, and if the killer dared look at them, they would get a 5-second stun. In the case of OTR, I mentioned off the record's negative gameplay loop, which is you run to a survivor, you get healed by them, and now you can take 2 protection hits for a teammate. And now you're forcing the killer to tunnel rather than actually trying to prevent the tunnel. And now we talk about selfless anti-tunnel perks. This is stuff like Borrow Time and Shoulder Your Burden and Reassurance to a degree. So the issue with these ones is it's not like selfish perks where you can use it for malicious play. It's more so these ones tend to be a little bit more boring, but more importantly for the killer side, they tend to feel a little bit cheap. So the issue with shoulder the burden is, I take a hook state, but what if it's the end game and I needed that person to be Death Hook? So I could go for the tunnel because all the gens are done and I need to clean up. Well, now I can't because it's end game and someone just shouldered them and they both are going to hit stage 2. In the case of Reassurance, you are chasing a survivor, you get the hit on them, everything is fine, and then they just press F and all of a sudden the survivor on the hook is glowing white and you're just like, ugh, okay. Like, it's not annoying, but it does feel cheap for the killer side.
Mm-hmm.
But there is one anti-tunnel perk that is selfless, which genuinely feels like it's the most skill expressive out of all of them. Not only from you, but from your teammate. And that is Babysitter. And that is the perk on my list.
A perk I dread the day people realize is actually really good.
Yes, because Babysitter is genuinely a goated anti-tunnel perk that has a solid foundation. So, Babysitter has had a rocky history with its design. At first, it revealed your aura to the killer, and the killer saw you, which was a little bit weird, but I understood why they were doing it. And it would hide the survivor's scratch marks and pools of blood on the unhooked target for like 8 seconds. Then they realized, oh wait, seeing your aura and the killer seeing you when you just unhooked a guy seems a little bit stupid. Let's remove the killer seeing you and bump up that number. So now 8 seconds, you see the killer, and survivors, scratch marks, and pools of blood still exist. Then they buffed it again, so now as a minor haste manipulator to like plus 7% haste with the current 10 for like 8 seconds. Or it just was a flat increase. And then they decided to go the ultimate direction, which is what we have now. You see the killer's aura for 8 seconds, and your teammate has 10% extra haste for 30 seconds.
And leaves no scratch marks, right?
They lose scratch marks and pools of blood.
Oh.
Let's talk about why I think Babysitter is one of the best anti-tunnel perks in the game. First of all, that aura reading effect gives you a lot of information to work with. If you know the killer is going to tunnel, you see where they are, and because the teammate is hiding their scratch marks and pools of blood, and they're faster, you're able to intercept. You're able to go in the killer's sightline and distract them, and force them to go onto you. Mm-hmm. And even if the killer decides, no, I want that other guy, well, it's going to be harder to track them, because they're not leaving scratch marks or pools of blood. And they're running 10% extra faster, which I think is going to get a bite in the butt with the haste stacking. Which I hope the developers will look into. Mm-hmm. But overall, at the moment, Babysitter makes you run 20% faster for 10 seconds than 10% for the remaining 20. But the overall idea, I like it, because it's a skill check for you and your teammate. Because if your teammate is just going to run into the killer's face, Babysitter's not going to do much. But it gives them the tools to prevent them getting tunneled. But at the same time, it gives you the tools to keep your teammate from getting tunneled, because you know where the killer is going to be. You know what to do. So you know to intercept, to distract, or to body block. Overall, I think it's a really well-designed perk that it took a long time before behavior finally got to where they wanted with it. But I think it's a solid concept now.
Well, yeah, and again, it has the same problem all of those, even like the current borrowed time, which I still think is actually really good. It has the same issue of it affects your teammate, not you, so like you don't see the effect as much, so people don't want to run it. But its effect on its own is really good, and honestly, like as much as I hate it and do complain that if it becomes meta, it's going to be a problem, on its own in a vacuum, it really is very well designed.
And I think it helps to escape the issue of like passive perks, because you get an aura read, so you know that the perk is doing something.
Right. And if the other person's running Wicked, I mean, you both know.
then it's a party.
Well, moving on to my next one.
Yep.
I told you all of these people are going to be mad at me for. Adrenaline.
Oh, the
I
scandal.
I think Adrenaline is honestly, I know I put it second on here, but I think it's the best designed survivor perk in the entire game.
I can see it. Like, a lot of people for the longest time have argued for Adrenaline being one of the best designed. And I
Well,
can understand the logic behind it too.
I mean, even like before its nerf, people's like that was the thing. I remember when Adrenaline was like getting nerfed, not too long ago. There were so many
Hmm.
people, including myself, who were like, "It doesn't need a nerf. Adrenaline's fine. Like it rewards you for making it to end game. You can make plays off of it. The killer can prevent it if they bring a certain amount of perks or play in a certain way. Like it does all of the things that I feel like every perk should do. It even has like a fun little mini game if you're with a Swift, where
Yeah.
if you're injured and there's one gen left, you're like, okay, guys, can you guys pop that last gen? I'm going to run him on a chase, and like you can like go down in the killer's face, have the Addy pop, and then run away.
Yep.
Like it has a lot of these aspects. On top of that, like I said, it only works in the end game, so it has to be earned. It's not like they pretty much don't have a perk for the rest of the match.
Exactly.
So it has a skill expressive aspect to it. It's very impactful, but not in such a way. Like if I lose because of adrenaline, I might be a little upset, but like I'm not like, oh my god, adrenaline needs nerf. No, I'm never like that. And the changes they've done to it recently, while I don't fully agree with them, I don't think it changed that too much. Plus, adrenaline has a few counters like Terminus. You can bring Terminus if adrenaline ever becomes super meta again. Not to say it's not, but like if it ever becomes super meta again, like every match, you can just bring Terminus or Noed.
Although I will say, in the case of Terminus, you want to be careful. If you have latency, then Terminus will activate too late before Adrenaline pops.
Yeah, and then there is one other problem with adrenaline, but this is more a problem with the game.
Mm.
Have you noticed that not that many people have been running adrenaline since Kin came out?
I noticed.
Yeah, there's a reason for that because adrenaline removes your deep wound instead of healing you.
Mm.
So that's the one issue I have with adrenaline from a design perspective. But someone could also argue that's a good thing because it means if a killer can add deep wound, that's a form of counterplay against adrenaline.
Yeah.
So
Like, I can see that, especially with a lot of a lot of killers releasing during the era of Death Hard meta,
mhm.
where we saw like a ton of killers introducing Deep Wound, like Deathslinger, Legion. Houndmaster was a little bit of a weird ball because why does Hound Sense give Deep Wounds? Well, the joke that I like to make is, oh, she was designed during the Death Hard era, so she was designed to act as a form of anti-Dead Hard. Same with Skull Merchant with the Claw Trap.
I mean, we got deep wounds on Kin too. That's two killers in a row with deep wounds. I don't think anyone's really mentioned that. Huh.
Oh my goodness, you're right. Oh no! Quick, we need to nerf Deep Wounds again. Nerf Legion.
But fuck Legion, nerf Deathslinger. God, I feel so bad for Deathslinger players, man. That killer's he's not bad. It's just bro needs some love.
He needs a bit of spice. Right now, he only has sugar, and that's kind of it.
Well, okay. Here's the funny thing about the Kin release for Deathslinger. Not only did he get nerfed indirectly because the deep wound changes because of Kin.
Yep.
He also Kin is what Deathslinger's original design was supposed to be. So
Oh, you're right. It was supposed to be a gun where you shoot and you pull yourself towards it.
yeah. So
Oh, for
he
Pete's sake.
yeah, it's really funny to think about it.
I feel bad for the Deathslinger fans now.
But again, like adrenaline just has these aspects to it that I just think make it very well designed and like not a perk that I don't think anyone can really realistically complain about. Because it's like if you're complaining about adrenaline, like losing your matches, just I don't like saying this often, but like just don't go to end game. The survivors earned it. They were playing with 3 perks for the entire match.
Hmm. Like, I will say, I think the nerfs that they did do to Adrenaline were more so quality tweaks, just to help with lower tier killers, like in the case of Trapper.
Mm-hmm.
Because a good example that a lot of people tended to complain about with lower tier was that, oh, I hook the Survivor, everything is fine and dandy. The last gen pops, they get unhooked, oh, they're full health.
That I do think needed to be changed. I don't think it was as pertinent as some people were making it, but I am glad that got changed.
There was also the nerf to remove being awoken from the dream against Freddy. I understand the logic behind it being there, it was a thematic thing, but the change was more so following behavior's philosophy of perks should not or like perks and items should not interfere with killer powers. Meanwhile, we have Iron Maiden. But I think in the case of Iron Maiden, it's a happy accident. I don't want them changing. Because I don't want to stare at a blank wall for 5 years.
Yeah, Iron Maiden's also a weird one because like it doesn't really. It's one of those ones where like a lot of killers don't really interact with it too much, so like it's just
It's just like 2 or 3.
Yeah, and even those killers don't really care and have other ways to circumvent it with add-ons.
True.
It's
but like,
go on.
Overall, I do agree with you with Adrenaline. I think it had its issues before the nerfs, but a lot of the nerfs were more so quality tweaks to try and counteract the more annoying parts of Adren. And we have gone into a much more stable state where it genuinely feels like what it's supposed to be. A very fair and welcome reward for reaching the end game as Survivor.
Yeah. Which I think we honestly, like, Hope is in a similar situation to that. Hope's a different problem because there are some killers where Hope is genuinely, like, really, really hard to deal with. But the argument could also mean just don't get to end game pretty much. But yeah,
just don't get to end game, forehead.
I mean, it's easier said than done, but you know what I mean. Like,
yeah, I know.
Yeah, Hope is
a little bit funny.
Yeah, and with Haystack going away, I think Hope's fine. Honestly, it's funny because looking through all of it, I think Hope was the only like perk that genuinely is probably going to not benefit, but doesn't need a buff after the Haystack goes away.
Yeah, because before it lasted for like 2 minutes, and then they made it perma.
Yeah. Oh God, trust me, I know. I play Chucky. If I miss my slice and dice and you have Hope, I am fucked. I'm never catching you.
Alrighty.
So your next one, your last one.
No, I have 2 more.
Oh, we're 2 more. My bad.
Yeah, I only talked about Babysitter, but it was a very long tangent, mostly because we have such a long history with Anti-Tunnel. I had this perk for 2nd or 3rd place, but you know what? I'm going to build up the suspense for number 2. I'm going to talk about number 3 first, and it's Parental Guidance.
Refresh me on what that perk does exactly, because I always forget.
Alrighty, so Parental came out with the Sadako chapter. It's one of Yoichi's perks. Upon stunning the killer by any means, you gain, or you suppress grunts of pain, pools of blood, and scratch marks for 7 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
It's a perk that follows a rather unique approach to stealth play in Dead by Daylight. Because stealth play for the longest time has had a very iffy relationship with the player base. Because back in the days of Yonder, of Dead by Daylight's lifespan, we used to play the game like a hide-and-seek game. We had Claudettes who would wear super dark cosmetics and run moonlight bouquets and fog offerings, and they would pretty much just hide in a brush and they would turn invisible. Like, no one would be able to see them. And it's a big reason why perks like Iron Will were a lot more popular during that time, because it focused more on hide-and-seek play. But as the game got older and players got better, and they realized, having 2 pallets at a jungle gym, and having like 2 windows in Killer Shack, and having no entity blocker is kind of giga cracked. And so people started learning how to loop. And unfortunately, the killers were not designed at the time to deal with looping. They were designed to follow with a philosophy of hide and seek, of, oh, this is the big bad monster, you're supposed to hide from it. No, survivors went like, nah, we're going to just loop the living daylights out of them. And because of this, we got a lot of killers that focused more on chase play. For example, the reason why Nurse and Hillbilly were so popular was because they had ways to circumvent the fact that there were 2 pallets in a jungle gym. But Nurse was more so a band-aid fix for the issues, and Hillbilly was more so like a skill check compared to Nurse, who just had like 6 or 7 blank space. with add-ons. Then we got more killers over time, like Hag, that leaned still more into the hide-and-seek approach of the slower DBD. But then we got someone like Doctor, who said, okay, hide-and-seek, it's over. Because I'm going to know exactly where you are, so you have to loop me. And even then, I'm going to give you a bit of a check because of the shock. But as the game has gotten older, we've leaned a lot more in chase play. Not only because we got more killers that focus more on the chase, and the game has evolved more towards chase direction with loop balance, but also perks. You will notice that we have gotten a lot of perks focused around chase play. And when it comes to stealth play, we do get the odd perk every once in a blue moon, but they tend to not really see much use, mostly because behavior tend to keep them very weak. Because a video that just recently was posted by Otstar Van Hens is the 10-minute hostage that you can do with the surrender option. The reason why it exists is because some survivors decide they don't want to play the game and they're just gonna hide in the corner of the map.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately a sad accident that happened because of something malicious that survivors were doing, but it's something that behavior are keeping in check 9 times out of 10 with the stealth perks. They don't want survivors just getting free invisibility, pretty much. Yeah. It's why a lot of the stealth checks, like low profile, have such high requirements.
Yeah, so that's why the distortion was changed in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. But parental guidance is one of the very few stealth perks that plays in a completely different ball from other stealth perks. Because it's a stealth perk that focuses on the chase, but unlike Lucky Break, which helps you break that chase, parental guidance is more so a skill check for you. Because it's saying, okay, you have 7 seconds after stunning the killer. You can use that to either hide, you can use that to continue the chase, but make it harder for the killer to track you. It is up to you to use the map as your playground, pretty much.
Yeah, it's a much more. I would classify it more in the realm of like.
I would classify it, or in my video talking about why no one uses Yoichi perks, I discussed passive versus active stealth perks. Yoichi's parental guidance is an active stealth perk. Same with something like Urban Evasion, although a lot of people tend to use it a lot more passively. But it's separate from something like Lucky Break, which is a bit more passive, because Lucky Break just activates because you got hit. In the case of parental, it's active because you need to get that stun in order to get the value.
Yeah, and it's a lot more. I was going to say it's more of a deception perk in my mind, kind of like Quick and Quiet and Cut Loose. It's a stealth perk you use in the chase.
Yeah,
right, to get away.
And I think one of the things that makes parental so much nicer compared to other stealth perks is that you can utilize it with a bunch of unique perks in the game. And I think that behavior want to try and play more with parental, but they're a little bit scared. So, parental guidance doesn't just work on pallet stuns. It works on any kind of stun. It works from a pallet stun, it works from a locker stun with head on, it works from flashlight saves, and more interestingly, it works with blast mine. So you can just hit a killer cross map with a blast mine and now you lost scratch mark, pools of blood, and grunts of pain. And it happened one day, I'm just like, why am I not making grunts of pain? And I'm like, oh, because parental guidance triggered with blast mine. It was such a funny thing that happened.
It's also, it's funny too, because I might actually combine that with the buff Champion of Light when it comes out.
Like, it has the potential to be really good, and there are combos that exist for parental. It's more so it's not yet, like, immediately recognizable as being good. Mostly because the issue that parental has is an issue I've been talking about a lot of the perks in this video. It's a passive perk. You don't see when parental activates outside the little timer on the bottom of the screen. But unfortunately, most survivors are not going to be looking at the corner of their screen to look at the funny picture activating. They're going to look at the big bad monster that's busy chasing them and wanting to eat their head, aka Ken.
But I mean,
also flying at Mach 10.
The other thing too is like it also combines with a bunch of other perks. The buff they did to Lucky Star recently. Like parental guidance plus Lucky Star, you can literally stun the killer. Like if you combine that with like Smash Hit, stun the killer, get the Smash Hit, run away. You're leaving no scratch marks, no grunts of pain. You hop into a locker with Lucky Star, also leaving no grunts of pain while you're in the locker. The killer has no earthly idea where you are. And then you get aura reading when you hop out of the locker.
Exactly. But I think what keeps parental away from Lucky Break territory, where you just run Lucky Break, Overcome, and like Quick and Quiet with Inner Strength, and it's just like, oh, I get to escape a chase for free. In the case of this, it's not so much a second chance; it's more so a reward for actually getting the stun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is something I feel like a lot more perks. We saw this with Exalted. Not Exalted. Is it Exalted? The Trevor perk.
Yes, Trevor.
Yeah.
Exalted.
Yeah, Exalted.
No, Exaltation.
Exaltation. Right. Behavior had to go old English on us. Exaltation, like that one's another one that rewards you for stunning the killer. I think we need more perks like that. Because go ahead.
I'm going to mention a perk design to you. I want to know your thoughts on it.
Sure, go ahead.
While healthy, the perk is active. Pallet stuns last 0.5 seconds longer.
The killer would have to get a notification. That would be my only caveat. He would have to know what's happening.
If that were the case, I would like a perk like that.
Yeah, I feel like the killer would have to know, because if not, I would just accuse them of cheating at that point.
Yeah, fair enough.
Plus, like, again, if the killer doesn't know what, like, it's in play and they just don't notice, I don't know. I feel like something like that would... It would have to be like Dying Light, where like it tells you the effect is going off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about that. But no, that's not a bad idea for a perk. Or make it a boon. No?
I mean, no, I'm just busy joking, because behavior making a boon in 2025? Unreal.
Yeah,
I think the last boon they made was Alan Wake's Illumination.
Yeah, and we'll see how boons go with Dark Theory getting its buff. I know a lot of people are scared about it.
Yeah.
I'm not, but, you know.
Yeah, like, I think that the Dark Theory buff, it's a good one. I think it's well warranted, since the perk has been bad for a long time. But what keeps it bad is the fact it has a range restriction. It needs you to set up at a totem. The killer can just snuff the totem. It takes a lengthy time to set up the totem.
Well,
but the worry that people have is that, killer Survivor Squad are just going to set up 4 different versions of Dark Theory. Well, there's Shattered Hope. Well, there's an option.
It's not even just that. It's just like, unlike Circle of Healing, like, they can't... You're still chasing them.
True.
It might take a little bit longer, but at the same time, they're being rewarded for setting it up in a good spot.
Yeah, and they have to play in that zone, else they're not going to get the haste.
Exactly.
So if it's an empty dead zone, it's not really going to fetch them much.
Yeah, it's affected by map RNG. It's not like, again, Circle of Healing, you can set it up on any boon. It didn't matter. It's the same problem that Exponential currently has, where it's almost useless on like most of the maps unless you happen to get a 2-story boon.
Yeah.
And the thing is, people are like, oh, they'll just bring you to RPD. Yeah, but they're adding the 20% thing to map offerings soon, so that won't even matter.
Yeah, that will be luckily handled. But the other issue, I talked about this when talking about MFT when it first released. The difference between MFT versus Dark Theory is that Dark Theory has a ton of restrictions tethered onto it to make sure its balance is checked. It's a limited range that you have to play in that bubble with. There's a setup time that you have to do with the boons. The killer can snuff at any point that they want. And unlike Circle of Healing, where the killer has to go out of their way to go to the other side of the map to stop the healing, in the case of Dark Theory, you have to set it in a much more aggressive position in order to fetch value from it.
Yeah.
Versus MFT, where it's just, I'm injured, I run 3% for free. Yay! Yeah, and I also get to get endurance from healing a person. Let's go! Woo!
Yeah, again, I think people are just kind of worrying about Dark Theory a bit too much. I understand the concern and I get where they're coming from, but I don't think it's going to be an issue. And if it does become an issue, then we just nerf it back down to 2%.
Yeah, like I think it's fine to experiment with Dark Theory, especially since it's been really stale with its balance
Yeah, and on top of that,
for a long, long time.
like people are complaining, oh, Swift will abuse it. Motherfucker, Swift will abuse everything.
True.
I'm tired of this argument. I'm so tired of we can't do this because Swifts will abuse it. I'm so tired of this. Like, unless it's something like blatant, like boil over was for a little while there, I don't care at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Maybe that's just me being weird, but yeah,
No, like it's reasonable.
parental guidance is just it's another overlooked perk, just because, like you said, the effect just isn't as apparent as it is for other perks.
I think the other issue is more so the combos it has just aren't super clear, because the unfortunate issue with parental is that it's a passive perk with its effect. So you don't necessarily know when it activates, except if you look at the corner of the screen. But most of the time people aren't going to look there. And as I've been saying many times in the video, a lot of people prefer much more poppy and flashy perks in the game. It's a big reason why stuff like Corrupt is so iconic to the game. It's because you get to see the entity holding 3 gens hostage for at the start of the trial.
Yeah.
But using that versus something like Thanatophobia, where it's just like, oh, I get to slow a generator down by like 2%. Cool. It's a decent effect if you build it up, but I would much rather run something like Painres Deadman Switch, because I at least see that the perk is doing something.
I mean, that's the other problem with Deadman Switch on its own. You don't really know how much it did.
Like I said, I think Deadman Switch is more so a support perk.
Yeah. I don't mind it on its own. There's some killers who can use it pretty decently on its own.
Artist, Freddy,
Chucky to a degree, Oni, any killer that
pretty much anyone with mobility that can force the survivor to let go.
Anyone with mobility, or anyone who can like have a presence on the other side of the map. Like I said, Chucky's footsteps. You would be surprised how often people let go of a gem when they see them. Just for a quick second, and that's all that matters.
I think Houndmaster can do it too with the Fatty Meat add-on, where survivors caught in Hound Scent scream every 15 seconds.
She doesn't even have to do that. She can just send Snug to the gen. She doesn't even have to go there.
True.
Like, they'll get off of the gen if they see Snug there. Most people will. At least for a second, just to double check.
Yeah, because she is fast approaching your area.
My last one. So I technically have 2 for this, but they're both Sable perks. So I think here's the funny thing, because when I was trying to think of like well-designed perks, I realized how well-designed Sable's perks are. Now that now the Invocation has been buffed the way it has, I actually think it's really well-designed. The Invocation is not one of these, though. It's the other 2. It's Strength and Shadows and Wicked. And I wasn't sure which one to pick, because it's kind of for the similar reasons. I like that they give a reason for survivors to go to basement, on top of the fact that it just in general are like really powerful effects, but not so powerful and don't like affect the killer directly, so they don't feel overpowered.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Wicked's a really, really good anti-tunnel perk for yourself, and it's one no one really ever talks about for anti-tunnel, because it technically doesn't directly stop the tunnel, but knowing which direction the killer is coming from, if they are coming back to hook, is really, really powerful.
Yep.
Or even if you even just knowing that they aren't coming back to hook. Like, if you're in a Swift, or even if you're with somebody else, like, okay, we can heal under hook.
Yeah.
And then Strength and Shadows is just it's the perk that self-care wishes it was.
True. I'm going to say something about Strength and Shadows. There is a particular build that I enjoy running with Strength and Shadows, which is very memey, but I can't help but love it because it makes Metal Man actually decent. So the build is Strength and Shadows, Bodily Knowledge, Inner Focus, and Metal Man. The general approach is I see a teammate getting hit because of inner focus. I run over there, tank the hit. If the killer leaves me alone, I go into basement and heal. And then I go back to the teammate who is being chased. I take another hit. I heal. I go back up there because Strength and Shadows shows me where the killer is, so I know where to go. I get the protection hit again, and voila, Medal of Man is fully stacked.
I ran it with, I used to run it a lot with Lucky Break and Overcome. Because you would get hit, run away, the killer wouldn't know where you were, you run to basement, heal up, and like then you know where the killer is, so you know which gen to go to. Like again, Strength and Shadows just it's risk and reward. The risk is where is basement. That's the risk, and you have to like position yourself properly to get the most use out of it. The problem Strength and Shadows has isn't the perk itself; it's people who run it and think, if they take a hit, they have to run to basement immediately. But that's a player problem, not the perks problem.
You're calling me out now. Come on, man.
It's the same thing with Wicked, right? Wicked's issue is that people think you have to, it's only good if you get that unhook in the free unhook in the basement.
Yeah.
But it's not. The aura it provides is really, really, really good. Even in like solo queue, it's really good. Again, it lets you know how to where to go to avoid the killer after getting unhooked.
Yep.
It's what, 20 seconds, isn't it?
It is 20 seconds for Wicked's Aura of Read.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's insane.
And with Ice and Belmont, it's 22.
That's insane. It's like one of the longest aura readings in the game, isn't it?
Yeah. Although I will say, I am very upset that it was an Aura of Reading extension of 1. We may have had the potential of saying, oh, they're running Wicked. How long is their Aura Read? 21.
Gotta bring back the dead memes.
Yeah.
But like, honestly, though, it's just, the thing is, like over the past year or so, I know, like, people have been complaining perks have been getting, like, too good or whatever. Honestly, I think Behavior's doing a very good job, especially on the Survivor side with the perks. The only one I can think of that's been made in a while that, like, I don't think is going to be, that hasn't been that good is Still Sight.
Yeah.
And Still Sight, I think just needs a buff to, like, 2 seconds, and I think it's fine.
Yeah. Like, I can see the potential of Still Sight, and I do know the worry that people have of having a free wall hack on the killer. I'm going to talk about that one very, very soon. But in the case of Still Sight, you have to stand completely still in order to fetch value. And there is undetectable in the game too. Stealth killers can just ignore it.
Yeah.
Or you can just run an undetectable perk. And then you're standing still and you're like, I wonder who the killer is. Hear heavy boots steps. Douche, 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 douche. Then you hear the tunnel music starting. Da, 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 da.
It's even like I'm trying to think of other like Bardic Inspiration was really good. Mirrored Illusion, while it's not like really good, it is.
It has its meme plays.
It has its meme plays. It has its situations where it's good. Even all of Trevor's perks are decent. Like we just talked about Exaltation and Eyes of Belmont's a really good support perk, and Moment of Glory is a different one, but I like how it's like a self-imposed challenge perk.
Yeah.
I do enjoy
it's kind of a return to stuff like No Mither, but not as hard as No Mither is. Yeah.
That's why I super enjoy Mog, as I call it. And then there's other ones like even the 3 new perks. I know some people are like scared of duty, whichever the haste one is. I honestly like the idea of them adding tank body blocking perks.
Yeah. Because
the only one we really have in the game right now is Medal of Man.
Yeah. We have been lacking supportive tank perks in the game for a long, long time. I think it's about time we saw some interesting dynamics with the approach.
Yeah, I like the idea of this of a survivor running a build that's all about like actually protecting their teammate.
Yeah.
I love this. I've said this before in 2v8. If we get more roles or classes for 2v8 Survivor, I want a tank class. One whose sole purpose is to basically just body block for their team.
Yeah.
Because I think that could be very interesting. And then, like, even other ones, like the healing one we're getting, that's like kind of an anti-tunnel perk, but also like a budget made for this. That one's really cool. I also like it because it gets rid of the one problem Made for This has of if you didn't unhook the person.
Yeah.
So if you got there a second late. They've been very good on the survivor side. Killer side's a little different because Killer hasn't had too much of a shakeup perk wise recently.
Yeah,
I think
like I think the most dramatic perk that we ever got for the killer side was
jagged,
human greed.
jagged.
With this card, I'm able to draw 2 cards from my deck. Wait, I'm reading the wrong script. Hold on.
Jagged and I guess Weave Attunement, I guess, are the only two
Yeah,
recent ones. Because even Ken's perks, like, I don't think I've seen anyone run the Hindered perk once.
yeah, because the totem just pops the moment it spawns.
It's not even that. The 5% just isn't worth it. You catch up to them
True.
like a second sooner. And it only
True,
works on
but
basic attacks.
every single time I watch clips where people are just like, "Oh, I finally built nothing but misery. It's finally ready to work," and then it just pops the moment it spawned in.
That happens to me with Face of Darkness all the fucking time. I'm like, yeah, I got information. Then it instantly pops, and it's like, oh my god.
You now understand my trauma of playing Pig with the damaging add-ons with the jigsaw boxes. I've been trying so hard to make use of that meme build, but it never works.
And like even the other one, oh my god, what is the other ghoul perk? I was talking about it earlier. Forever Entwined. Yeah, that one's actually, I don't think it's good again. It's just a feel good perk, but that's a decent one. I think we need more perks like that too. Feel good perks. Because right now it's like brutal strength, fire up, and enduring. That's really it.
Yeah.
But onto your last one, the one you told us to wait with bated breath for.
Alrighty. Have you ever watched Adventure Time?
Yes.
Do you know what the island of Adventure Time is called?
Ooh.
You got the perk.
Ooh.
Ooh. It's Object of Obsession.
You're gonna make an argument that Object Obsession is well designed.
Okay, let's talk about history. Back in the days of Yonder, back in the land of Object of Obsession had a much more thematic approach to its gameplay style. But this is because back then it was the wild, wild west of Dead by Daylight. No one knew what was going on with perk balance.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, we had like 7 Blink Nurse with 2 add-ons. That wasn't with Jenners and, Matchbox, I think? No, it was just like a purple, or not purple even, a brown and a yellow add-on.
Mm-hmm.
So, Object of Obsession's old effect was that whenever you looked in the direction of where the killer was, you saw their aura, but they saw you. And the approach was, oh, okay, I get to see the killer and they see me. It feels like Laurie Strode, since in the movies, she's the only one for some odd reason who does see Michael Myers at the early to midpoint of the films, until he finally decides to revive and shake things up. But the issue with Oo's old design, as many people noticed, is that it's a free wall hack. You get to look in the general vicinity of where the killer is, and you now know where they are. And if the killer looks to see where you are, you just turn the camera and, oh, now they can't see you anymore. Because you had all the control over how Oo's aura reading used to work.
Mm-hmm.
Now, M1 killers were crippled by Object's aura read, but in particular, stealth killers were completely decimated by Object. Because in the days of Yonder, undetectable was not a status effect. How stealth killers used to work is that they hid their red stain and their terror radius, but they did not hide their ability to read their aura. Meaning that if a wraith or a pig was crouched or in power, you could just look in the general vicinity and go like, oh, look at that cute little pig waddling her way to go with a 3-second uncrouching speed after me. That's so funny. Meanwhile, you're busy running to the other side of the map by the time that she finally gets to where you used to be. And I think it was the Ghostface PTB where it got to a point where behavior said, okay, enough's enough, it's time for Ooh to get reworked. And Ooh ended up becoming the perk that we now know today. Where after 30 seconds, the perk activates, you now see the killer's aura and they see you. And whenever you see the killer's aura, they will see you. But they ended up changing it later on because of how Deception was able to combo with the perk, where you could run Deception to hide your aura, but you still saw the killer. They decided instead with a ability clause, okay, if the killer sees you, then you can see them with aura reading. And what ended up happening was that Object got a spike in pick rate during the Weave Attunement meta. Because what would happen is that Weave Attunement was really annoying for most people because they're like, well, the killer has a free wall hack on where I am. I have no idea what to do. But people thought, wait a minute, let me cook here. What if I fight the wall hack with my own wall hack? And then it's just a battle of wall hackers running around the square. Because Weave Attunement is showing the survivor, but Ooh is showing the killer to you because they see you. So it's a wall hack versus a wall hack and you're busy running around the square. It was the funniest time to run Ooh, but the reason why I argue that Ooh is a much more better perk compared to its predecessor is, one, it's a skill check perk, like Parental and Babysitter. Because you have no control over when the aura read activates. It will happen every 30 seconds. You could be hiding in the corner and you're like, please don't look at me, killer, please! And then Ooh activates and then the killer looks at you and you're just like, for Pete's sake, Ooh. But then, at other moments, the perk has chances to shine because now you know the killer's coming towards your direction, but you know to go one way, but then you play with the fact that, oh, the aura turned off, I can now run the other way, and the killer's going to think I went in that direction. There's also the fact that it's a minor stat booster because of the aura read. But I like the approach they went with the new rework to Ooh, where now Object is more focused on aggressive play. It's a perk that says, okay, you want to use it for Swift? You're gonna have to be much more aggressive with the perk, because that killer is going to be able to see you, and there's no real way to stop it. Because the trick is that undetectable killers are able to counter Ooh, because undetectable is a status effect that exists in the game, and they still get to see you, but you don't see them.
Correct me if I'm wrong, too. Object only works if you are the obsession, right?
No, hold on, let me take a look.
I know it increases your chances of, it basically makes sure you are the obsession, but it only works if you are, though, right?
Because if you're the killer's current obsession, the following effect triggers automatically every 30 seconds. Yeah. Oh, okay. But like the aura reading effect tends to activate whenever they see you, you will see them with Ooh.
I'm curious if it ever becomes meta again, if Friends to the End would be the option.
But like the reason why I like Object now is that it's one of the weird perks in the game that rewards aggressive play. Like a lot of survivors like much more aggressive chase focused builds. And Ooh is one of the very few times where it's saying to a survivor, hey, you want to go actively chase with the killer? You know where they are. They know where you are. Go. Commit a crime. But unlike something like other chase-based perks that give you second chances, this one is a lot more unforgiving. And it rewards you for using that information well.
Yeah,
in general, that's the approach that I tend to like with the well-designed perks. They have a skill check to them that rewards good forms of play.
I love playing against Object as Chucky all the time. Because I see someone has it and I just go undetectable.
Exactly.
And then, like, even in a loop, they can hear me laughing, sure, but, like, they don't... a lot of people who use Object of Obsession, I've noticed, really do rely on that aura read a lot for their looping.
Yeah.
And it really does throw them off. It's just funny that I have, like, this trump card to turn their perk against them.
Like, I also like the fact that Ooh is the only aura read that acts as a form of aura reading on yourself to see the killer, but in exchange they see you. It keeps that thematic approach of the horror movie of Halloween, because Laurie Strode was able to see Myers multiple times throughout the film, but no one bothered looking at the strange guy in a jacket with a white mask, just staring up at a window, going like, that's a interesting looking lady. I wonder what I'm going to do with this knife with her tonight.
But again,
But
and you mentioned Babysitter earlier. Like Babysitter used to have this effect too. Part of me kind of wants to bring
yeah,
it back to Babysitter. I don't know. Well, because the thing is, like, if the killer sees the unhooker's aura, they're more inclined to go after them.
yeah, but the issue with that one is what if the person wants to heal under the hook?
Yeah, I suppose.
I think that's the logic behind why they removed being able to see the survivor's aura as the killer. But in any case, I just like Ooh because it's probably one of the weirdest thematic perks to exist in the game. But after its rework, it hammers the idea it's trying to go for, but it has implemented so many checks to make sure it doesn't break like it did way back when.
Mm.
And I will say, I did like the fact it became a cute counter perk to Weave Attunement at some point. It's just funny thinking back in the days of old that Weave Attunement and Object of Obsession run in the same games, and people were just running around a block because they're just like, I see you, no, I see you, who will win with the wall hack first?
It's like playing against Cigar Box Clown.
It's like two aimbot snipers against each other. Who's going to win? A battle to the death! The winner is probably going to be the nurse who's running Weave Attunement.
I guess for honorable mentions, I didn't really think about it till just now, but Detective's Hunch.
I can see it.
Detective's Hunch is it's a perk that like it gets brought up every now and again, but like I don't think enough people talk about how good it can be. It's probably one of the best aura perks in the game for everything that's apart from the killer's aura, but it's an aura perk that like rewards you for doing a gen. That's not as common as you would think. And like if the killer is running a totem build, like it counters that completely. It can help you find chests. It can help you like if you're running a boon build, it'll help you find boons, like where the best place to put a totem is. Things like that. It's I don't know. I think it's a decently designed perk that I just don't see enough. Even when like Thrall of the Hunt was meta for a little bit there.
Yeah.
I very rarely saw it.
I think the issue with Detective's Hunch is more so it got power crept as more info-based perks came to the game. Mm-hmm. It's a solid idea. The problem is that we have maps that Detective's Hunch is borrowing from, and since we are going to get a map and key update eventually, hopefully sooner rather than later behavior, but we also have other perks like Clairvoyance and I'm trying to think, Still Sight. What else is there for survivors?
Well, Clairvoyance requires you to do a gen 2. I think Detectives is better than Clairvoyance.
No, Clairvoyance needs you to cleanse or bless a totem.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Unlike Detective's Hunch, you can just multi-bless totems and keep refreshing Clairvoyance. But in the case of Detective's Hunch, it's just 5 times and then it's done. Although I will say, I do like Detective's Hunch works with maps. I wouldn't mind if they gave Detective's Hunch the ability to rummage for a map.
That could be a nice little buff to it. I could see that. Or they could just make it last longer. That could be another thing. Or have a wider range.
Have its aura range duration doubled when the last gen's popped.
I will say it is nice that it doesn't require you to do the gen. It's just when a gen pops.
True.
So like that's a nice thing with it. Again, like I just think it's well designed in the fact that it's a perk you can pull out for like if a certain meta becomes popular. It's all technically speaking, it's always useful. It synergizes with a lot of other things.
Yeah.
Like it's just nice in that sense.
I think the issue is more so it has gotten power crept, and there's nothing specific to Detective's Hunch that helps it stand out from the rest of its competition.
Fair enough. And your honorable mention?
So I have 3, or I technically have 1. The other 2 I already mentioned with Babysitter, and it's Borrowed Time and Shoulder the Burden. I talked already about Borrowed Time and how it majorly influenced the game. I think for talking about best designed perks, we are never going to escape talking about borrowed time and how it impacted the game in such a positive manner. Because it was one of the most solid ways to deal with anti-tunnel that didn't feel as annoying as something like Decisive Strike. And the fact that the developers were smart enough to realize, oh, let's just make a base kit, is such a blessing.
Yeah, and even the perk on its own now isn't even, like I said, that bad because it can mess with killer timing. A lot of killers will count out borrowed time before they hit if they don't know, because if you're running off the record, they won't hear the grunts of pain, so they won't care then. But
Yeah.
if you're not and they hear the grunts of pain, I mean, myself included, I'll wait the time out and get the hit. But if borrowed time is there, then I will not get that hit.
Yeah. Like, the issue with borrow time now is one, power creep. We've gotten so many anti-tunnel perks that perform the task in a wider plethora of ways. Like, Reassurance is one of the best ways because it's just, oh, how to stop the killer from tunneling? Just keep the person on the hook. That's, funnily enough, one of the best ways to stop a killer from tunneling.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have stuff like Shoulder the Burden and Off the Record and Babysitter. Unfortunately, Borrowed Time struggles a little bit from keeping something unique to itself, because the unique thing about the perk was implemented into the base part of the game.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a necessary evil, but I do feel bad for Borrowed Time, as it has dropped in popularity.
And as for Shoulder the Burden, I've gone on record. I think the idea of Shoulder the Burden, its base effect, is actually really, really well designed and really good. The problem is the downside it has is not enough.
Yeah.
I think I was gonna say, I think the exposed, maybe this is insane to say, I think the exposed needs to be permanent.
Permanent? Interesting.
Maybe not permanent, but like it needs to be longer than it is now.
Fair enough. I was thinking to make it disabled during the end game when the last gen pops.
That's also something they could do, yeah.
Because I think the big issue with Shoulder is the fact that during the end game, a survivor can get hooked and it's their first hook. And during the end game, this is the time that killers are trying to clean up and actually get pressure. So that way they can just get some stats on the board. But Shoulder the Burden can just go like, oh, that one hook that you got after being looped for 5 years, yeah, it's been avoided.
Well, yeah, and like I said before, like the exposed effect it gives as the downside for doing it is fine, because it's a really, really clean balancing decision, because it means Blight and Nurse can't take the most effect out of it. Only like M1 killers can, I guess. But the thing is, I feel like if the exposed was longer or, like I said, permanent, it would mean that the killers that like get the most affected out of it do get some form of like, not benefit necessarily, but a way to like make it so it's not as big of a deal.
Yeah.
Because well, let's say you're playing Clown and somebody uses Shoulder the Burden and now they're exposed until they go down again.
Yeah.
So like as the Clown, you can go after that person. Not only did they trade one of their hook states, they're also now exposed, so there's like a give and take there. If they're confident in their chase, then they don't care. But if they're not, then yeah.
I will say this about Shoulder the Burden. I think this is the most extreme behavior will ever go for an anti-tunnel perk. Because a lot of the time, behavior had been focusing more on anti-tunnel in the form of it's up to the survivors to play with the map geometry and use resources to keep themselves alive. And the anti-tunnel is more so, these are just like little extra boosts to slap the killer on the wrist just for doing something mean. Like, oh, they go for the tunnel funnel? How dare you? But in the case of Shoulder the Burden, it's quite literally a curb stomp of a perk. It's pretty much going like, oh, you tunnel? Tough. Now you're going to have one other person trade the health or the hook state. So now it's like you didn't tunnel at all.
I don't know. It's another thing, because again, I do like the idea, because even the newer...
It's a solid concept. It's just that it has its flaws that really make it begin to smell.
Even the newer anti-tunnel perk we're getting, the healing one, I think is actually a really well designed one as well.
Yeah.
But I don't think we're going to be seeing that one too often because again, just like Shoulder the Burden, it's for your teammate, not for you.
Hmm.
So I doubt we'll see it as much as we could.
Yeah. But anyways, the honorary mention or the honorable mention I have for survivors is actually For the People.
Hmm.
So I really like For the People as a design. I think it's one of the most interesting design perks in the game. Being able to trade your own health state to pick a teammate up or to heal them is one. It's a really unique form of anti-tunnel or anti-slug in a really cute way. And I've never seen behavior ever play with health states, especially during the time, the way they did with For the People. Because this was during like year 4, or like year 3 to year 4. This was like before Pyramid Head came out. So in the year 4-ish range. Behavior never really played with health states much, and even now they're only just experimenting with it with self-healing perks like Clean Break and Moment of Glory and Plot Twist.
Mm-hmm.
But For the People to this day is very memorable because it's the perk that, oh, I trade my healthy state in order to heal another teammate instantly. And it has a high risk and high reward factor. But the reason why I put in honorable mention is that it has had so many toxic metas formed around the perk. Not because of what For the People can do, but because it enhances the perks that were meta breaking in such a unreasonable way. A good example is Buckle Up. Like, the idea of Buckle Up is that, oh, it's a form of anti-slug. I pick a teammate up, I gain endurance, they gain endurance. And in theory, it sounds fine. It's like, okay, this seems like a reasonable form of anti-tunnel or anti-camp. Or not anti-camp, anti-slug. There's too much anti in this game. We now just need an anti-nade at this point. Bring Ana as the next survivor. But in the case of For the People, it worked with Buckle Up in such a weird way where it's like, oh, I instantly trade a health state, but we're both invincible for 10 seconds. And even now, people are still worried about For the People combining with We're Gonna Live Forever and MFT. Granted, you now need to use 3 perks rather than 2, but it's still a big worry because of how much damage Buckle Up caused.
I still haven't
And
seen anyone use it yet, though.
yeah, like I've been experimenting with it, and it's funny, but in general, it is a worry to stress about in the case of For the People.
Well, it's also
Because
it's a perk that like I've said this a lot about Zarina's perks because Off the Record's been buffed to a point to where it's like decent, but
yeah,
For the People never really got buffed. I just think people understood what it could actually do.
yeah. Like in the case of For the People, when I talked about Zarina's perks, the thing I said is that by itself, it's a very strong core, and the balance is fine. There's no need to buff or nerf it. The issue is that it needs more perks to help enhance what it's going for. But the issue is you need to make sure the other perks that enhance it are in check, because they can quickly get out of control, like what happened with Buckle Up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the case of We're Gonna Live Forever and MFT, what keeps that one in check is the fact you need to take a protection hit to gain the endurance effect for We're Gonna Live Forever. And MFT is a little bit flaky with its activation, with For the People, at least.
Yeah, I can see that. Like I think For the People has its moments, and I think that's the other thing. It's also a perk that like even on its best days doesn't always get the most use, which I think is fine.
Yeah.
It's more like it's like a trump card perk, and I kind of like that. Plus the idea of like a transfusion perk. Now, why does Zarina have this perk? I still don't know.
You know what? Zarina really wanted to hold a flag up, okay?
Well, no, okay. The name makes sense for Zarina. It does.
Mhm.
The effect, I don't understand.
Like I said, she just wants to hold up a flag, okay? We can respect her for that.
Fair enough. But any other perks you want to discuss here before we wrap this up?
Mm, I will say there's one perk that none of us talked about, and I think it's because we are scared of the Twitter nethersphere of the DBD community. Because it's their favorite punching bag to talk about whether it's fair or if it's overpowered. And that's windows of opportunity.
Okay, yeah, we can talk about Windows. I think Windows is perfectly fine.
I think
I
so too.
I
I
get an
think Dead by Daylight Twitter is just hard coping.
I get annoyed by it. Don't get me wrong. I will get annoyed when I'm chasing a survivor and I can tell they have windows of opportunity. But at the same time, I don't get like actually upset and be like, "Oh, they have no skill." I don't think like someone running Windows means they don't have skill. How they use it determines it whether or not they're like playing skilllessly. Because if all you're doing with Windows is running pallet to pallet to pallet to pallet, pre-dropping everything, yeah, you're probably just bad at the game and crutching on Windows. But if you're actually good at the game, you can make Windows look like a fucking like the best perk in the game.
Yeah.
It's and that's why I don't mind it so much. And Windows is funny because it's gone through quite the transformation. Because for a while there, it was considered like just a beginner friendly perk,
Yeah.
and that was
Like
it.
I will say this, as you are talking about beginner friendly, one of the big issues Dead by Daylight has with new player perks is I call it new player syndrome, where a perk is so heavily designed for the new player's fear that the perk kind of just falls flat on its face outside of that category. So a good example of this is Technician.
Mm-hmm.
So Technician is designed for the new player perspective. Survivors in lower MMR don't know what a skill check is, and they are petrified that the moment it pops up, they're going to miss it. So make a perk that makes it so if they miss it, there's no sound cue. Fair enough. The issue is that, unfortunately, there's no other effect for Technician outside of like the reduced repair sound. Meaning that for a mid to high MMR survivor, or even a low MMR survivor who does know how to land skill checks, Technician falls flat on its face.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a new player perk that has no identity anymore for anyone outside of that category. But behavior over time have gotten a little better at handling new player syndrome. Corrective actions rework really helped solidify it as a new perk or a new player perk, but it has a home for specific interactions in mid to higher MMR. It's
Mm.
not super popular, but it can be run there at least for some reasons.
Yeah,
But
and
Windows is the one perk, even when it had its 20-second cooldown duration, that completely escaped this category.
well,
Because for a new player, they get to see the palettes and the windows, and they're like, okay, I know where to run, but more importantly, they get to learn. They get to see
mm-hmm.
how palettes and jungle gyms spawn with tiles and loops. As the game evolves and we see new tiles arriving, for example, that really weird one on Dead Sands that you really enjoyed playing on the PTB.
Oh,
You
the
remember
the
the one
double
with the
the double pallet, double
palette,
windows.
double window. Like for new players, they get to learn about the tiles and how they can spawn. But for veterans, they get to learn the new maps a lot easier. And in the case of veterans, they get to see what resources are left available. And sure, a survivor can just pre-drop Andy every single pallet they run to because they see the aura. But it is more so how you think with the perk. Like, what palette do I know I can reach and conserve as much as possible? Because Windows is not just a selfish perk for me. I need to remember these palettes are for my teammates too. So it's a perk that for the new players has a home, and for the veterans it stays strong and it's able to provide something for them too.
Yeah, and again, it's like I the idea of if you run Windows, you're bad at the game. I will never understand this again. I will get annoyed if I'm playing against someone and I can just tell they have Windows because of how they're playing. And what I mean by that isn't that they're good at the game or like, what I mean is they are literally just going pallet to pallet to pallet to pallet to pallet.
Like, and just pre-dropping every single one.
Mm-hmm. It's just like that stuff gets annoying, but to be fair, they'd be doing that without Windows. It's just they wouldn't be doing it as efficiently.
Yeah.
I have heard the idea of maybe giving it a cooldown after you drop a pallet. I don't know if that's necessary, but I mean...
The cooldown did exist whenever you vaulted a pallet or window for 20 seconds, but then behavior completely removed it. I wouldn't mind if they brought it back for like 10 or 5 seconds.
Yeah, just so you can't just constantly get it. Because at that point, you can just use object permanence and know where one's nearby, you know?
Yeah.
So it would be more, like, less brain-offy, I guess. But Windows, as with most, like, information perks, is just good in solo queue. That's all it is.
True.
Like,
it's just something nice for solo queue when you have no idea if a Sable's going to use every single pallet.
Again, it's just a comfort perk. It's like Lethal Pursuer on Killer. Like, you could argue that's a skillless killer perk.
True.
Because it's like you don't have to find anyone at the start of the match, you just know where everyone is. But it's like, I just run it so I don't have to think too hard at the beginning of the match.
It's true. Like, in the case of Lethal, it's the same logic with Windows, where it teaches you survivor spawn logic. Like, whenever I play killers and I don't run Lethal, I actually know where they're going to spawn, because Lethal taught me where they can't spawn.
It's
that, and also just because basic game knowledge, because I've been playing this game for over 2,000 hours now.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic for sure. And something like again, like I also think it's funny because if someone is over relying on Windows, if you just bring blindness, it's incredible how much they stop being good at the game.
Yeah. You see, this is why we need to bring the third seal into meta play.
Oh my god.
It is secretly tier 0.
I mean, blindness has its own slew of issues, but that's mostly the biggest issue with it is lack of feedback. But if someone's got Windows, you'll notice. Oh god, yeah. Oh lord, you'll notice.
You'll notice when the survivor has Windows and they become blinded. They're just like, where do I go? What's going on? What is this map?
But
it's the funniest thing to ever happen, and I love it.
But any others? Because I can't really think of any other like well-designed ones I really want to bring up.
That's kind of the main one I wanted to bring up, because I was waiting to see if it was on your list, Windows.
No, like I said, Devour Hope, Corrupt, Stabiffle, Autodidact, Addy, and Strength in Shadows.
Yeah, in the case for me, it was for killers, it was No Way Out, Jagged Compass, and Thrilling Tremors. And in the case of Survivor, it was Babysitter, Object of Obsession, and Parental Guidance. Like, I will say, perks in the game can easily flip from being perfectly designed to having really big issues at the flip of a dime. But it's not so much because of the perks themselves. It's either because of outside factors or balance. Because Dead by Daylight works on a really, really wacky spaghetti logic. And a lot of perks have a lot of interesting details to them that only through playing the game you'll begin to see what they can do. Like, I literally experimented for a day on multi-hit power killers, how self-preservation works with them. I managed to see how weird it works with someone like Trickster, who needs just one knife, versus Unknown, who can just lob the UVX, and even if it doesn't do damage, well, you're still going to keep the, you're not going to activate self-preservation. In general, the perks have so many weird dynamics to them, but it's why I love them so much. They just are, they provide so much unique flair to the game. And it helps them stand out as unique, and they can be problematic. We know this many, many times. But it is interesting how they can change the game so differently.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, again, it's just the evolution of the game in general. And how even, and even with these well-designed ones, like I mentioned with Adrenaline, like I don't think Adrenaline needs to be changed. But like, Autodidact, I think, could use a buff. I don't think it necessarily needs it, but like I could use one. You know?
Like, I will also say a lot of the perks we mentioned, outside of Adrenaline, a lot of them were like during the year 3 to current-ish era of Dead
Yeah.
by Daylight. Even with Ooh, when I talked about it, I was talking about its rework, which happened during like year 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that, a wall hack existing in this game for 2 years, and the developers do nothing about it.
Well, again, Clown has wall hacks on demand.
Yeah, but I mean like a survivor having a free wall hack on the killer. Like, if that existed as a perk nowadays, it would have been taken out either from PTB to live, or within like a 3 to 6 month span.
That
Like, 2 years sounds insane.
the more I think about it, that might be why they're so scared to buff Still Sight.
That is the logic I'm thinking too. But I think in the case of Still Sight, they do have checks to make sure that stealth killers don't get as much suffering as they did with Ooh, because undetectable is now a status effect. And there's a lot of undetectable to exist in the game now for anyone to disrupt wall hacks with Aura Breed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and on top of that, again, like, you have to stand still.
Yeah.
So, like, you can...
There's that too.
Yeah.
And survivors have ADHD brain. They don't want to stand still. They want to move.
But...
They got the disco pants on. They gotta dance.
But I think with that, we'll go ahead and end this here. But Hero, as always, thank you for coming on. I know you're probably the most reoccurring guest apart from Crow, but it still means a lot that you come back on here a lot to just talk about the game with me.
Well, it's mostly because I am a crazy guy who likes yelling about perks, and this is one of the areas that I can do it outside of just my main channel, which hopefully I'll start uploading again on soon, in May. I did say I want to start uploading a lot more projects in May.
Yeah, and I hope you get there. Speaking of, y'all should go sub to Hero. The links will be below. But...
I will say, though, scripting has begun on my newest video. I have finally completed all the data collection I needed to make the next video, and I will tease it here. I already posted it on the community tab for my channel. The next video, which will be coming out early May, is 100 unique builds for Dead by Daylight.
100?
Yes.
Good luck with that.
Oh, I already found all of them. I just need to figure out how to make it into a video.
Fair enough.
I'm going to be looking at Asimov and how he structures his video, because I like that guy's content. He's epic.
All right. Well, like I said, I think we're gonna go ahead and end it there, though. If you want to plug anything else, now's the time.
Yes. I have a Blue Sky account. I don't normally use social media all too often, but if anyone has questions for me about like perks or balance decisions or even just like anything about Dead by Daylight, you can just ask me there. I also always look at the YouTube comments on videos because I like reading a lot. And I do technically have a Twitter, but I don't really use it because reasons.
Understandable. I wish I used it less if it makes you feel any better. But all of that will be linked below. And Hero, again, thank you for coming by. I think we'll go ahead and end it there. To everyone listening on the YouTubes, I love you guys, and yeah, bye.
Bye. It's been a pleasure.
Always with the quack.